To formally begin, let us invoke the presence of our Almighty God in our opening prayer, to be followed by the Philippine National Anthem.
Ng ating buong magtatapat sa habang panahon.
Maging sa kabila ng ating pagkukulang, biyaya niya'y patuloy na laan. Katulad ng pagsinag ng gintong araw, patuloy siyang magbibigay tanglaw.
Mula sa puso ko't damdamin, ang kanya'y aking purihin.
Dakila ka, O Diyos, tapat ka ng tunay, magmula pa sa utak ng aming lahi. Mundo'y magulang at maaasahan kang lagi, maging hanggang wakas nitong buhay. Kaya, O Diyos, ika'y aking pupurihin, sa buong mundo'y aking awitin.
Dakila ang iyong katapatan, pag-ibig mo'y walang hanggan.
Dakila ka, O Diyos, tapat ka ng tunay, magmula pa sa utak ng aming lahi. Mundo'y magulaw mo at maaasahan kang lagi, maging hanggang wakas nitong buhay. Dakila ka, O Diyos, sa habang panahon, katapatan mo'y matibay na sandigan. Sa bawat bigati na kumpay manay naroon, naluya ng pag-asa kung kailangan'y minahon. Pag-ibig mo'y alay sa akin noon hanggang ngayon. Dakila ka, O Diyos.
Mga kababayan at pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang mag-ibig sa sinakanan, alam ng puso, sa ningin mo'y bumay. Upang inilang, yan na ng mag-ibig, sa magtutubig, di ka masisipin, sa nakatagtubog sa simula, sa langit ko pagaw, ay tinatagtubag, sa pagkayang inamahal, Ang pagkawat mo'y patuloy na nakikinig. Bakit hindi nagkaroon niya may nagpapay di makikinig? Tumalang araw ng buwan, bakit magsikap? Mo'y nangin sa piling ko. Ang hindi kaya ng may makabi, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Thank you, Education Circle, for the audiovisual presentation. Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Pasig underscores scholarly activity and innovation, allowing students to participate in research, engages their intellectual curiosity, satisfies their thirst for discovery, and provides them an outlet for their creativity. To give us her opening remarks, let us welcome the Department Head of Bachelor of Secondary Education, Ms. Annalie Baguio.
To our University Research and Extension Director, Dr. Cecil D.M. Espiritu, Dean, College of Business and Accountancy, and one of the speakers today, Dr. Joanna Marie Pina S. Di Manuel, our OIC Dean of College of Education, Ms. Myla Enunsay, Edu faculties and students, a pleasant afternoon. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar entitled Research Made Easy. It is indeed a great effort for the Research Office to conduct this webinar to help our dear students and guide you in your thesis writing. Research plays a vital role in everyone's life. It unlocks the unknown, lets you explore the world from different perspectives, and fuels a deeper understanding. There's always more room to learn about a topic, even if you are already well versed in it. But if you are not, research allows you to build on any personal experience you have with the subject. The process of research opens up new opportunities for learning and growth. Writing research is a very challenging task, but at the same time, a very rewarding experience, provided that you put the best of your expertise and skills in it. So, my dear students, listen attentively to our speakers, take notes of the important informations they share, and remember them as your journey in your thesis writing. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you, Ms. Baguio, for that message. As this learning institution puts premium on scientific study, the school has put in place the Research and Extension Office to help us create a research culture in the school. To introduce our first resource speaker, may I call on Mr. Jonimar Banaria.
Thank you, Ma'am Talosa. Good day, everyone. It is my honor to introduce the first speaker, so please allow me to read her professional profile. She had her bachelor's degree in education, major in social studies at Pasig Catholic College. Her master's degree in education, major in educational management at Marikina Science and Technology, and her doctorate degree in education, Doctor of Educational Management. She had it at Polytechnic University of the Philippines. For her specialization, social sciences, education, and research. Publication, Philippine History and Sociology books, co-author. Professional works, textbook writer, researcher, editor, resource speaker, trainer, and seminar coordinator. Eligibility, licensed professional teacher. She is affiliated to Philamba Theta, Association of Social Sciences and Educators, Researchers, and Trainers, Research and Educational Development Training Institute. She is the current Director of University Research and Extension Office. Please welcome Dr. Cecil D.M. Espiritu.
Thank you, Sir Johnny Marr. So a pleasant afternoon to each and everyone, to our faculty members, to our speakers, and of course, to our third-year students, particularly the BEd 3A and BSET 3 Math students. Plus, of course, some of our non-teaching personnel are also here. Okay, so I am here to present to you the university research policies and guidelines. It is true that what Ma'am Anna said earlier, that research is indeed a challenge. Okay, so that's the reason why we wanted to develop among you students this the so-called research culture. So I do hope that with this presentation today, you will be guided accordingly in the process of writing and preparing your researches. So, slide please. Jennerson. Can I have the slide presentation?
Ma'am, good afternoon, ma'am. The slide presentation. I think the slide presentation, ma'am, will be presented by Mr. President, ma'am.
Okay, so I'll be waiting for Bob. So while waiting for Bodge, I would like to inform you that the goal of this presentation is to present the policies, the rules, and the proceedings for you to become familiar with when it comes to your preparation and, of course, presentation of your thesis. So this will become the basis for your thesis writing for this semester, all right? Bodge, are you
Good
ready?
afternoon, ma'am.
Yes.
I have not received any PowerPoint presentation for regarding the guidelines and policies.
I have sent that already to you last week. But anyway, sige, I will be presenting it, okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, to give way to your presentation, I will stop presenting my screen, ma'am.
Yes,
Thank you, ma'am.
please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So allow me to share my screen. Share. Can you see my slide?
Yes, Doc.
Yes, ma'am.
There you have it. Okay, so let's now proceed with this university research policies and guidelines. So as I have mentioned earlier, the main reason why we are here is for us to know the policies, the guidelines, the rules and regulations when it comes to the preparation of your thesis. So these are the standards to be observed, and this is being implemented as strictly as possible when it comes to the presentation of your thesis as undergraduate students of PLP. So regarding the format and style, of course, you will be given a copy of the soft copies of your student research manual. This is the second edition or the 2016 edition of the Pamantasan Student Research Manual, which will serve as the primary reference material for the preparation of your thesis. APA style will be followed in the process of writing the research paper. So in our student research manual, nandoon lahat, stipulated lahat yung mga format and guidelines that you have to follow in writing your thesis or researches. The qualification and composition of the defense panel, because remember, you will have the final oral defense in which your work will be evaluated and will be critiqued by the members of the oral defense panel. So generally speaking, the composition of this defense panel are as follows. We have, of course, our dean as the chair of the panel, or it might be also his or her designated representative. This also include the department chair, and then, of course, the research director or his or her designated representative, and of course, it might be a senior academician from another university with sufficient background in research and industry. But in general, we only have 3 members for the defense panel, of course. And basically, based on past practices, we have qualified of course, qualified teachers, faculty members from the College of Education to sit as panel members. Okay? So we have, of course, okay. So please take note of this, that if and when a member of the panel is not present during the defense, the said defense must be rescheduled, or the dean can designate another member to proceed with the actual defense. However, if this will be rescheduled, it should be done beyond, but not before the original specified schedule. Of course, when we talk about the panel members, we have to concentrate on assigning full-time faculty members for this program, provided that they meet the necessary qualifications to assure that students can easily seek advice from them during consultation for their researches, because we have specific consultation periods regarding the researches of our students. So they must be at least holders of master's degree with thesis, or it could be doctorate degree program with dissertation. Okay? So no worries about the full-time faculty members who will be sitting down as panel members for the College of Education, because we are all qualified to sit as panel members, because your faculty members have master's degree with thesis, and a few of us have finished our doctorate already with dissertation requirements. Okay? So in case that the college have no full-time faculty members, then that's the time for us that we can invite part-time teachers or practitioners, provided that they have met the requirements stipulated in this manual, but they cannot sit as a chair of the panel. They can only sit as a member of the panel. So in case that the dean is the research subject teacher and or thesis advisor of the student, the dean should inhibit from the chairmanship of the defense panel to avoid biases. So that's the time that the dean will be assigning his or her representative to sit as a chair of the panel, of the defense panel. So the dean and the panel members are allowed to handle a maximum of 20 groups per semester. That is to ensure quality in terms of assessing or evaluating the papers of our researchers. So it's not a problem with us, because ang atin namang number of groups for this semester will not reach 20 groups naman. So this is not exactly a problem. So the dean will have to designate another chair and panel members for the excess group in case na may ganon. But in our case, hindi naman tayo mag-exceed ng 20 groups. Okay? Regarding the number of students in a group, based on our manual, each group must be composed of a minimum of 3 but not exceeding 5 student members for proper designation, para walang asahan na mangyayari. So everybody should work. Everybody should have a part in the preparation and writing of the paper or the research. However, for the College of Engineering, they are allowed to have a maximum of 10 members because of the prototype that they have to produce, and this will entail a lot of costs and expenses for them. So that's why they are allowed to have 10 members at a maximum. Okay? So as to the honoraria of panel members and research advisor, kaya ngayon pa lang medyo mag-ipon na po tayo, BSET Math and BEd, in recognition of the professional work of these people who will be sitting as members of the panel. And of course, as a faculty advisor, the student shall be required to contribute the amount of the following as their professional fee. Our chair will be given 700 pesos per group, members with 500 pesos each per group. As to the research faculty advisor, 1,000 pesos will be given to her or to him or her as professional fee, and for the industry practitioner, 1,000 pesos only. Of course, this will be at one-time payment. However, if there will be major revisions which will entail redefense, then the panel member shall be paid 50% of the specified honorarium. Only the panel members will be receiving this 50% specified honorarium. In the case of the advisor, one-time payment lang po yung ating binibigay na 1,000 pesos, regardless kung mayroong redefense or wala. Okay? Other payments. No other payments aside from what is stipulated in the manual shall be imposed to the students. Professional fees for the in-house editor, proofreader, statistician, and accountant shall be for the individual account of the students. But of course, this is being regulated by the college dean and the research director and the entire university. So it so happened that since we have in-house professionals in line with editing, proofreading, statistic works, and accounting works, meron na tayong sinet na amount for their professional fees. Pero kapag kayo ay kukuha ng mga editor, ng stat and accountant and proofreaders outside PLP, then we cannot regulate yung payment na hihingin nila sa inyo. So basically, mas mataas yung amount na sinisingil for their professional fees. So that's why we are recommending in-house professionals to do this kind of work. Okay? So for the undergraduate students, our proofreader, 500 pesos, editor 1,000, statistician 1,000 pesos, and accountant 500 pesos. But of course, you are not going to ask for the assistance of the accountant. It's more on editor and statistician. So ito yung nire-recommend ng panel members na dapat ay ma-tap when it comes to writing your thesis. Okay, what's the difference between the editor and proofreader? Ang editor kasi is only concentrated on correcting grammar, spelling, proofreader is only more concentrated on correcting grammar, spelling, and typo aspect of your document. Okay, however, when we say editor, it's more than that. He or she is checking on the accuracy of the language, the flow and overall readability of your paper, checking of grammar and spelling, the organization of your paragraphs, and other parts. But most importantly, the editor is also checking the format of the paper in accordance with what is stipulated in this research manual that we have. Okay? So, how about the research subject teacher? The research subject teacher must also be a full-time faculty member with a degree program higher than the research subject student. So, master's degree holder or doctoral degree holder with thesis and, of course, dissertation. And that would be in the same or related field. Once again, why full-time faculty member? It's because this is to assure that students can easily seek advice from them during consultation hours for their researches. Okay? The research subject teacher may or may not be present during the defense. However, if the advisor will not be present during the defense schedule, the dean can designate or can assign the research subject teacher to be present and to serve as the minute taker of the proceedings of the research defense. Okay? The conduct of title defense, pre-oral, and other related activities of the student shall be part of the responsibility of the research subject teacher and shall not entail additional expenses on the part of the students. Okay? The research faculty advisor is, of course, requested by the students upon the approval of the research title. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be automatically approved by the dean, because the dean will be looking into the consideration of expert ba siya sa field na to. If in case that the dean saw that the faculty member is not fit to advise the set group because it is not his or her field of expertise, then the dean can designate another person to handle this group. The research faculty advisor must be a full-time faculty member with a degree program higher than the research subject students in the same or related field. An advisor can be allowed to have a maximum of 10 groups per semester for advisorship. Okay? The college dean, sabi ko nga kanina, will be considering the field of expertise of the research faculty advisor. And of course, the advisor will assist the students in terms of the content of the paper, from its conceptualization down to its final completion. And he or she will be receiving a one-time payment of 1,000 pesos as honorarium or professional fee for every successful defense of the research paper. The faculty advisor must be present during the research presentation and deliberation, and will serve as the oral defense secretary of the panel, in which after 3 days, he or she should be giving the executive summary or the minutes of the oral defense which took place in that particular schedule. Okay, so research faculty advisor shall be inhibited from participating in the panel discussion except when so required by the panelists. Kapag binigyan siya ng go signal ni Dean, ng chair ng panel, that's the time na po pwedeng magsalita ang advisor in behalf of the group. Okay? In case that, ito yung na-mention ko kanina, kung hindi present si advisor during the defense, the Dean can designate the research subject teacher to take the minutes of the proceedings. Okay? But then again, the research faculty advisor will still remain as the advisor until the completion of the research paper and will still receive the honorarium. Okay? The college dean, in consultation with the research director, can remove the advisorship from a designated faculty member if and when the advisor is remiss of his or her duties. Therefore, the conduct of the oral defense and other related activities of the students regarding research shall be part of the responsibility also of the research faculty advisor and will not entail any expenses on the part of the students except for the professional fees that will be asked from the students. Regarding the hardbound copies, usually sa College of Education, we are producing 3 hardbounded copies and then soft copies saved in CDs. Okay, so the color of our hard-mounted copies is of course royal blue for the College of Education. Okay, other requirements. Of course, the dean shall see to it that no other class activities of the faculty and students shall be affected by the scheduled oral defense. So basically, the target month that we will have our final oral defense will be on May. Okay, so good luck to everyone. Okay, so the research faculty advisor and research subject teacher should submit a letter to the office of the president for the approval of the defense schedule, and the composition of the panel will be recommended by them. However, again, may prerogative si dean na baguhin yung composition na yan based on the required background that the panel members should have in terms of this composition. The letter must be with the recommending approval of the college dean and endorsed by the research director. The same process will also be applied in case there will be redefense or change in defense schedules. Okay? Upon the approval of the panelists, kapag okay na-incorporate na lahat ng mga suggestions, recommendations ng panel, the undergraduate students shall be required to submit to the college dean a set of 3 lamang, 3 hard copies and 3 soft copies in CDs. Okay? So, dyan po iti-distribute yung mga copies ng ating mga thesis. Okay? Next, what are the procedure in thesis writing and defense for undergraduate programs? Of course, it is required from you to come up with thesis because this is part of your requirement for your bachelor's degree. Henceforth, we have to follow certain steps in terms of thesis writing and defense. First, that would be the submission of your title and the research paper. So the subject teacher will be the one checking the post title and will be forwarding it to the department chair and the dean of the program for the final approval. Once it is being approved, then the students will be submitting a letter of request regarding advisor. Pero again, it depends on the, it depends on the field of expertise. Kaya i-check po yan ni college dean. Okay? When an advisor is already assigned to the student, the advisor will be checking the paper, the proposal, make suggestions and recommendations for initial revisions. In case na you're done with the revision and you have incorporated all the suggestions, then it will then be checked by the advisor. Pag okay na yan in the process at ready na yan for defense, ito po ay isa-submit ng advisor and research subject teacher natin with the letter Yung letter will be submitted to the university president, but this will be with recommending approval by the department chair, the college dean, and endorsed by the research director, so that we can set the defense schedule for your paper. Okay, together with the composition of the panel, defense panel. Okay. Ito yung minention ko kanina in designating the advisor and members of the oral defense. These are the things that we have to take into consideration. Yung recommendations ng subject teacher, ng college dean, ng department chair, at ng research director. This depends on the expertise of our faculty members, which are connected with the topic approved eventually, magiging reason for the designation of all this group of people. Only full-time faculty members of the college are permitted to function as thesis advisor. Once again, this is to ensure that the advisee can promptly make an appointment for consultation with the advisor, kasi may designated consultation hours po ang ating mga teachers. Okay? Research paper defense. Upon completion of the paper, the advisor and the research subject teacher will schedule the defense, will recommend the schedule of the defense, and advises the proponents to submit copies of the paper. Yun nga lang, in our case kasi, let's wait and see. Baka mag-alert level 1 na by that time, so maaaring magkaroon ng face-to-face or in-person. Pero in case na hindi pa rin matuloy yun, it will be done online. Henceforth, those copies, soft copies, will be sent or submitted to the official PLT email addresses of our oral defense panel. Okay, so make sure proponents should see to it that the paper follows the university format and style, and this will have to be checked by the subject teacher and by the faculty advisor. And take note of this: the copies should be received by the panel members 7 days before the oral defense. So that's 1 week before the scheduled defense. Dapat nasa panel members na ang mga kopya ng ating papers. Okay? So the proponents will present the paper in which they are given suggestions, recommendations, and revisions for improvement of the paper. So the panel members will be reviewing it, will be evaluating the paper, and they will be, of course, set certain amount of time for the question and answer portion, and there you will have the suggestions, recommendations, and other things that should be incorporated or included in your paper. So after the defense, of course, the panel will be returning the copies of your paper so that you can see their comments and suggestions. Okay, the proponent should carefully study the recommendations, and you have to make sure that it is all of those things being given by the panel members are incorporated in the finalized copy of your research. Once you have the revised thesis, it will be given once again to the panel members after being checked by the advisor and of course by the subject teacher. That is for re-evaluation of the panel members. Once na okay na siya, then that's the time for you to have it hard-bounded. Okay? So, dapat kumpleto yung copies na yan. So, that will include chapters 1 to 5 of your paper plus the preliminaries and the back matters. So, pag wala ng revisions ang panel members, that's the time for you to be given a go signal na pwede nang i-print yan, pwede nang edit yan, kasi definitely hindi pa naman dumadaan yun sa editor, kaya dapat ipa-edit muna and then pa-check ulit kay Dean, and then after that magbibigay ng go signal si Dean kung pwede na siya for printing. Okay? Having no further revisions, that's the time for you to have it hard-bounded. Okay? What are your responsibilities as researchers, as proponents of this thesis? So here are your responsibilities. Take note of this, my dear students. First, you have to submit to your department chair and to the college dean with the endorsement of the subject teacher a copy of the research title for their final approval. Once the dean have assigned an advisor as per request of the student, the advisor should be consulted by you. Okay? So dapat nagko-consult na kayo kay advisor regarding the early stages of your preparation of the manuscript, regarding your topic, your plan of investigation, your research methodology, yung organization, and other elements of writing your thesis. Only the PLP specifications or the designated style manual should be used. So therefore, what is stipulated in our student research manual should be followed in terms of format and style. So we have to comply with the right form and correctness of information in terms of quotations, in-text citations, references, tables, figures, and other illustrative materials based on our student research manual. Okay, then kapag nakadaan na ng final oral defense, make sure you incorporate corrections given by the panel members. And then finally, producing the final copies of your thesis. So just make sure na it underwent editing, okay? Because the editor will be issuing a certificate indicating that the thesis was really edited, okay? So it is also your responsibility to personally secure the signatures of all members of the oral defense panel. But in our case kasi ngayon, isasubmit na lang talaga yung hard copy, and then kami na yung bahalang mag-sign kasi nasa office naman yung mga copies ng thesis. Okay, the research subject teacher will of course submit these copies, whether it is hard and soft, in the dean's office at least 2 weeks after the oral defense for that semester. Regarding your advisor, here are the duties and responsibilities of our advisors. Okay, so sabi ko nga kanina, we will be considering the field of expertise of the advisor that will be designated to a particular group of students. So the advisor have to guide the student in the evaluation of the thesis problem to make certain that there's no duplication with the previous thesis. Okay, and of course, the advisor is to guide the student in the preparation of the study in order to check into the comprehensiveness and depth of the treatment of the problem, as well as the technical aspect of proposal writing up to the completion of the thesis that you are preparing. The advisor have to guide the students in terms of the identification of the respondents, yung pag-identify ng population and sample size, sampling technique, pilot testing, yung mismong instrumentation, dapat dumaan sa validity and reliability testing, yung collection, tabulation, and analysis of data, up to the writing of the entire research paper. So once again, the subject teacher, the format and style of the paper should be kept in mind at dapat ito ay malinaw sa ating mga students. Okay, the advisor have to review the prepared thesis to see if that is presented in a logical and methodological manner. So all aspects of the paper will be of course checked by the research advisor. Of course, the research advisor and the subject teacher are to recommend the student for the oral defense. They will be informing the students on the requirements for this defense, the number of copies, and the necessary fees and other important reminders. The advisor will be checking on the students if they have incorporated all the suggestions, comments, and recommendations after the final oral defense. Okay, so the advisor will be the first one to sign the completed thesis before it will be signed by the panel members and the college dean. Regarding the responsibilities of the oral defense panel, of course, they will be asking questions, of course, to the proponents or the researchers regarding the research problem choice, objectives, and methodologies. They will also look into the presented concepts, especially the RRLS and their relationship to the current study. And also, the oral defense panel will be delving on the aspect of whether the specific objectives were answered in terms of your findings, conclusions, and whether you have given the right recommendations based on the results of your study. Okay? And of course, that is to assist also, they will be assisting also the students in incorporating the suggestions, comments, and recommendations. That is for the improvement of your paper. On the other hand, the responsibilities of our research subject teacher are as follows. Okay, so the subject teacher initially approves and recommends the research title to be, of course, subject for the final approval of our college dean. Also, kahit na ba meron ng advisor na inassign sa mga groups of students, the subject teacher should also closely monitor the progress of work done by the student. He or she will be suggesting on the composition or recommending the composition of the members of the oral defense panel and the defense schedule. And of course, he or she must make sure that the student is working closely with the advisor and the panel members. The subject teacher will be informing the Office of the President and the University Research Office regarding alteration in the composition of the defense panel or even the schedule of the final oral defense. Okay? As to the college dean, we have here the duties and responsibilities. The college dean will give the final approval of the research title. She will endorse the research subject teacher's recommended composition of the oral defense panel and the defense schedule. Yun nga lang, again, may prerogative din si dean para mag-designate ng composition ng final oral defense. The dean will also approve the thesis based on the guidelines stipulated in our manual. Okay? So, it's time na para kayo ay ma-expose na at ma-introduce kung paano isusulat ang ating thesis. So these are the content organization. We have to follow the specific rules, regulations, and guidelines in writing your thesis. So our thesis consists of 3 main divisions, namely the preliminaries, and these are the front matter. This will include your approval sheet, yung title page syempre muna, approval sheet, abstract, table of content, list of tables, list of figures, and then the body or the text of the entire paper. And then on the back matter, we have the references and of course the appendices, and of course your curriculum vitae. Okay, so we have a uniform presentation for our research projects based on our discipline. Okay, if you will be seeing the soft copy of our research manual, meron tayong format for specific to the College of Education. So generally, we have to use the font Courier New with different font sizes. For the title of your research in the front page, that would be 16. And then for the chapter titles in chapter 1, the problem and its background, chapter 2, review of related literature and studies, 15 ang size natin dyan. 14 for the sections of a chapter. Ito yung mga subtitles. And then meron tayong subtitles within a subtitle. So that is 13. And then 12 for the general text. The same font will be used also in all elements of the research paper. And of course, we cannot reduce it below 10-point size in our appendices and tables and figures. So hanggang 10 lang yung pinakamaliit. Pero as much as possible, let us make use of 12 as our font size because that is the standard. Italics may be used only for mathematical constants, chemical elements, symbols, foreign words, special emphasis, and inciting titles of published works. So Bisect Math, take note of that. Pagdating sa mga mathematical constants and symbols, italics will be used. So if this is an example of the front page. Okay, so 16 ang font size nung ating title, research title, and then 15 yung font size nung iba pang parts dyan. Okay, so meron tayo niyan sa research manual na makukuha nyo ang copy. Okay, so regarding the margins, ang naiiba lang ang margin size ay yung nasa left side, 1.5 inches. Samantalang yung top, right, and bottom, 1 inch lang po ang margins natin. So, from page, from the title page down to the curriculum vitae, ito ang margin na susundin natin. 1.5 on the left side, 1 inch for top, right, and bottom. Okay? It's the same thing goes with the appendices, references, tables, and figures. Now, when it comes to the to chapter 4, in which you will be presenting tables, please take note of this. Yung cutting of tables or splitting tables are not exactly allowed. However, if you have a long presentation of tables, then that's the time that it is being allowed, provided that on the following page, you will be putting on top of the table continuation of table number. Yun ang allowed natin. Pero if you are saying na meron na lang natitirang 2 columns at ikakat mo pa yun, no, that should not be the case. What we are doing here is the sandwich method. Okay? When you say sandwich method, you put the initial, the first paragraph or interpretation paragraph, and then the table, and then the continuation of the interpretation for that table. That is what we call sandwich method. Okay? And then always indent the first line of the paragraph, 5 spaces. Pero pagdating sa quotation, definitely nandoon yan sa center and then single space yan. Okay? So this is an example of the what we call this, the margin. Okay? 1.5 sa left. Eto siya, left. Sorry for the typo. 1 inch for the top, right, and bottom. And please take note, yung ating pagination, okay? Kapag every start ng chapter natin, chapter 1, chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, ang page natin always bottom, center, bottom, okay? So, yung succeeding pages, upper right, top side, corner, okay? So, yan yung minimension ko. Arabic numeral, yung gagamitin natin doon sa body ng thesis, okay? And then, yung page number natin, sabi ko nga, ayan siya, sa simula ng ating every chapter, bottom, centered. Pero yung susunod, ayan siya, upper right, top side, corner. Clear tayo dyan, okay? So, what else? The front matter, on the other hand, ay hindi po Arabic numeral. It's Roman numerals ang gagamitin natin, lowercase. So, this will start yung counting natin mula doon sa front page. Pero hindi tayo maglalagay ng I sa front page. Makikita natin yon doon sa second page, which is the approval sheet. At hindi I or 1 ang ilalagay natin dyan, kundi yung 2 na Roman numeral lowercase. Okay? Use standard size 8.5 by 11 inches na bond paper kapag tayo ay gagawa ng thesis natin. And please do not use correction tape or correction fluid for this. Photocopies made from the original copy should be checked in order to ensure that all copies are clear and margins are acceptable. So, ayan. So, ito yung sample ng part ng preliminary abstract. So, you can see, nasa bottom center din ang page natin at lowercase na Roman numeral. Okay? So, next. This is the usual guidelines on word processing. Always type on one side of the page only, pero justify margin ang gagamitin natin. Isa-set nyo na yon sa Word ninyo. Okay? And then use standard double spacing for the text of all preliminary pages. 3 single spaces in between paragraphs and in between chapter titles, what they call this, subsection titles, and other. Single spacing naman for multi-line chapter titles, table headings, figure captions, bibliographic entries, and other subheadings. Single spacing for block quotations din, pero double spacing before and after the block quotation. Okay? So, ito yung example natin. This is double space, yung mga nasa within paragraph, pero in between 3 single spaces. Okay? At makikita nyo, single spacing din yung mga subtitles natin kapag 2-liners or 3-liners siya. Same goes with the table title. Single spacing din siya, and then after that, double spacing, and then the table. Okay? So, sana masunod po itong format natin ito. So, in general, double spacing naman, pagdating din, so in between mga bibliographic entries. And then you have to key in uppercase letters and in bold all major section titles on the heading pages, just like approval, abstract, acknowledgement, list of tables, list of figures, list of formulae, and references. So 14 ang font size niyan. However, 15 ang font size naman pagdating sa chapter number and chapter title. Okay? Always tab 1 space between each word or text and 2 spaces after each period. And please use your punctuation marks as correctly as possible. Okay? Justified margins po tayo. And then please do not leave big spaces within the chapter. Pwede lang magkaroon ng white space na pagitan kung ang pinag-uusapan natin is last page ng isang chapter and then the following would be the start of the new chapter. Wala tayong ilalagay na running heads or shortened titles doon sa itaas at sa ibaba ng ating mga research paper. And you have to use the same font for all equations. So, Biset Math, ito yun. Same font for all equations. Hindi pwedeng mag-handwritten labels tayo and no personal handwriting. All of them should be computerized. Okay, so this is an example of the justified margin. Pantay talaga siya, both sides. Okay, so what are the nature of researches that you can build onto? According to our PLP research agenda based on NERA 2, we can come up with researches in line with the following: technological inputs to teacher education, policy-oriented researches, focus on quality and excellence, relevance and responsiveness, equity in higher education. Or it could be concentrated on multidisciplinary teacher education research like curriculum change, school administration and supervision studies, achievement and performance studies, teaching competencies, school and community resources, leadership, sociological issues, human development studies, peace, advocacy, education and globalization, information technology, human kinesthetic, family, culture, life, sports, and arts, basic researches on math, pure and applied math, improvement of classroom performance of Filipino teachers, utility of games and songs, also po pwedeng gamified instruction, di ba? Techniques and strategies, advancements of science and mathematics, use of scientific principles in responding to the development needs of the country. So ito yung target natin na schedule ng thesis activities for the second semester. First week, which is last week, title submission na dapat po yan for the approval of the department head and the college dean. Second week, which is ngayon, submission of SOP or statement of the problems to the research teacher, department head, and the college dean. Third week will be the submission of the survey instruments to the subject teacher, department head, and the college dean. Third to fourth week is more on writing of your chapters 1 to 3. Fourth to fifth week is the validation and reliability testing of your instruments. Sixth to seventh week is the submission of the letter to conduct the study to the Division Office of Pasig City if in case na yung inyong magiging target respondents will be coming from the public schools. So this will be online transaction. And of course, letter also to other institutions if you will be getting respondents from private schools or other institutions. 8th to 11th week is distribution of approved requests to the schools, distribution of survey instruments, data collection, and statistical treatment of data. 12th to 13th week is writing the final paper. That means your chapters 4 and 5. And of course, finishing touches of the entire paper. 14th week, submission of the complete thesis to the panel members. 15th week is the oral defense. 16th week, submission of revised thesis with minor revisions, kung minor revisions. 17th week, submission of revised thesis with major revisions. So, pag major revisions, there is a possibility na magkaroon ng redefense. Okay? 18th week is editing of thesis, and then printing and binding the copies and submission of the copies to our college dean. Okay? So with that, I would like to end this presentation with this quote. Research provides the inquisitive, critical, and independent regimen that develops intellectual capability and advances the boundaries of knowledge and understanding. Let us make sure that we add up to the bank of knowledge. Okay? So, Stop sharing na ako. That's it, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Spiritu, for that very informative talk. These policies and guidelines would help our students accomplish their research. You have given Dr. Spiritu a comprehensive presentation on the students' research journey in the university. Research is the force behind everything that we do. Research, my dear students, is not simply a requirement in the university. Rather, research trains us to think critically. It teaches us to work diligently. It also sharpens our deductive reasoning, decision-making, and interpersonal skills. To introduce our second resource speaker for this afternoon, who will talk on quantitative research, let me call back Mr. Junimar Banaria.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It is again indeed to present to you the next speaker that had MBA and DBA degrees at San Beda University. She's specialized in business analytics, quantitative research, behavioral finance, and fundamental analysis. Her publication, contributor writer to the business section Money Talks, Manila Times. Professional work, statistical consultant, financial planning and investment consultant, portfolio management, and asset allocation. She's a civil service license holder, certified in registered financial planner, USA accredited financial analyst, fellow Global Academy of Finance and Management, the Dean of College and Business and Accountancy. Let us all welcome Dr. Joanna Marie Pina S. De Manuel.
Thank you so much, Mr. Johnny Marr, and thank you so much, College of Education, for the invite. So, can everyone hear me? Give me a thumbs up. Okay ba? All right, good. All right, okay. So, for this afternoon, I'm going to talk about the quantitative research, and I understand that I'm provided with 1.5 hours to discuss the 5 chapters of research. So, is it okay if I present my slides po? Right?
Yes, ma'am, no problem, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right. So I will be presenting my slides no for the quantitative research. Can everybody see my slide? Okay ba?
Yes,
All right.
ma'am.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. So at this point, no, the only thing that I can see right now is actually my slides, but I don't get to see everyone. Okay. So if you have any questions with regards to the topic, do not hesitate to ask me. Okay, so the topic for this afternoon is going to be about quantitative research. And the topic will cover, well, I'm going to try to define to you what quantitative research is all about. How are we going to choose the right research problem? How are we going to formulate the research title? And we're also going to talk about the 5 parts of the quantitative research. So I'm talking about introduction, RRL, review of related literature, research methodology, chapter 4, which is presentation and analysis of data. And we're also going to talk about summary, conclusion, and recommendation. Okay. So moving on, no, if we're going to talk about quantitative researches, this is actually the reaction. So usually pagka bagets say what now? May mga ganun, di ba? Alright, so kasi it's afternoon medyo nakakaantok din yun, nakakaantok yung panahon, nakakaantok pa yung topic. Pero sige, I'll do my best. Alright, so this is actually your common, common reaction. Say what now? Parang ganon, no? And this afternoon, no, I am provided like 1.5 hours to talk about the 5 chapters of research. So, sabi nga, the seminar is all about making research, well, research made easy. So I'll try to make things easier for you. Okay. So let's look at the definition of research. Now, according to Curlinger, 1973, research is defined as a systematic, controlled, empirical, and critical investigation of hypothetical proposition about the presumed relations among yada, 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 which means ito nga ang itsura mo if you're going to look at the definition of research. So allow me to present you a better definition of research. According to Crawford, 1946, research is simply a systematic and a refined technique of thinking or employing specialized tools, instruments, and procedures in order to obtain a more adequate solution of a problem than would be possible under ordinary means. So ano mapapansin natin? I highlighted some of the terms. So it's a systematic, meaning it's actually a process. It's actually a process being repeated over and over again, and later I will explain that to you. Next, it actually employs specialized tools and instrument, meaning to say this is actually your chapter 3. Okay? So we're going to employ specialized tools in order in order to get data so that we will be able to find solution for the research problem that we have identified. Next, we make use of certain procedures, something that we discussed in chapter 3 under methodology. And then from there on, we are able to obtain a more adequate solution to a problem. So that is the reason why we actually float surveys and we conduct FGDs or focus group discussion, simply because we need to get data from our respondents. From there, we try to make sense of what they mentioned to us. And finally, makakasulat na po tayo ng chapter 5, which is your conclusion and recommendation. Then all of these things is something that I will discuss with you today. So let's talk about research, okay? Whenever I look at research, I try to dichotomize the term. So hinihiwalay ko yan, and then the search, okay? So what are we actually searching for, or what are we actually looking for? We're actually looking for a problem. Now, the thing with researchers is that researchers are actually concentrated with finding the right solution. We're so concentrated with looking at what we can do, what changes can we bring about to the nation, what developments can we inject, what processes can we invent. Imagine, but, and without thinking if we actually find the right problem to begin with. What I'm saying is that we are so obsessed with creating processes, with injecting a lot of solutions, pero hindi mo naiintindihan kung may problema ba doon o wala. Diba? Ibig sabihin, magkikreate ka ba ng proseso, pero wala namang problema doon sa existing process. So why create a process? So nagtatapon ka lang ng oras nun. When we talk about research, when you talk about searching for a problem, you search for a problem that is actually defined as a real problem. That's what you're looking for. Do not try to fix something that is already fixed. Baka sa pag-aayos mo ng isang bagay na ayos na, lalo mo itong masira. So, as a researcher, we are actually looking for a problem. Okay, so what are the characteristics kasi of a good problem? So according to Adanza, 1995, number one, it should be interesting to you. Interesting in the sense that something that can get your attention over a period of time. When you create a research, it is something that is, it is something that you can stick with it. Kasi when you're already faced in the toughest of situations at hindi mo gusto yung gusto mong i-research, I'm telling you, hindi ka tatagal sa thesis ninyo. Practical tip yan. Next, it should have a practical value to you, to your school, and to your community. And that is what research is about. Research is about finding solutions to a problem that is also being encountered by your school, a problem or it's a phenomena being encountered or being experienced by your community, and a problem that is also something na na-experience ninyo. And from there, you're going to look for solutions. It should be novel or current. It should be current issue, syempre. Data is really available, okay. Very important ang number 4 and 5, okay? It is interesting, it is novel, it has practical value, but if the data is not available, then there is no point for you to continue the research simply because there is an allotted time for the conduct of a thesis. Meaning to say you are just given 1 semester to complete your thesis. If you cannot look for the data, if you cannot find the data because it is not available, and if it requires experimentation more than 1 semester, then there's no point for you to continue with it. You have to really be practical because you just have 1 semester to conduct the research, diba? So, kailangan siguraduhin mo matatapos mo ng isang semester. While you are being practical, you also need to make sure that when you create a research that is challenging enough for you to complete. Last, your research problem should always be within the boundary of your expertise, specialization, experience, and acquired knowledge. Because pagdating mo sa chapter 4, it's a lot easy. It's a lot easier to give justifications on your observations if you are specialized with it. Okay, ano yung common scenario with students, no? This is a common scenario for us, no, for my college, no, College of Business. Well, we've encountered some students who actually create thesis, pero kung titingnan mo ang nature pang education, or pwede din naman nangyari sa inyo, no? You create theses, but you propose a thesis, a topic. However, the nature of, if you look at the nature kung pwedeng pang health sciences or ang nature pwedeng pang business, no? So you guys are being trained as future educators, no? Given that for 3 years you are being trained for assessment, for education and pedagogy learning. So ibig sabihin, dapat doon kayo mag-stick kasi nandun yung specializations nyo. At mas mabibigyan nyo ng hustisya yung papel kapag ka nandun kayo sa boundary na yon. Okay? Okay, so moving on. Earlier, I mentioned that I look at research as something like that of a dichotomized term. So, re at saka search. Okay. Remember that you search for problems that need solution. Okay. But the thing with research is that there is the word re. Re for me is what we call it's a repetitive process. There is a repetition. Kanina, no, kung babalikan natin ang definition ni Crawford. Crawford, 1946, no? Sabi niya, research is a process. And I agree with this. Research is a process because it is a repetitive process of looking for a problem. Okay? Creating solutions for the problem. Okay? Pero itong tatandaan nyo, what's so good about research is that there is an element of innovation. Bakit? You look for a problem, and you will see, no, when you do your review of related literature, ma-identify nyo that there have been a lot of studies under that particular area or that particular field. So, ibig sabihin, ganitong nangyari. Nagkaroon ng problema, nagkaroon ng solusyon. Kaso dahil dun sa bagong solusyon, nagkaroon ng panibagong problem. At syempre, nagkaroon ng bagong solusyon, at sa bagong solusyon, nagkaroon ng bagong problema. And that is the beauty of research. Research, and I have to agree with this, that research improves human life because research facilitates innovative solutions. Because as a researcher, we are not contented with the existing solution. We always challenge solutions. The solutions that are being presented to us now might arise to a yet another problem that needs to be solved. Again, and take note, I am emphasizing the problem here. Okay? Okay? I'm emphasizing on the problem. It's not just about looking at what solution I can give, but instead, it has to be what are the existing problems, and from the problem, what solution can I induce? And that should be the point of your research and not the other way around. Okay. So therefore, research means searching for a theory, testing a theory, and then solving a problem. Can we test a theory? Yes. We can test the existence of something. We can hypothesize on a lot of things, and we test hypothesis using statistical treatments. Okay, and also in these situations, there are actually problems that cannot be solved immediately, and this is where we actually need research. Okay. So I kept on saying something about the problem. So let's talk about the problem. Let me give you an example. This is a common problem for us, for my college, and probably could be a problem for you as well. Okay? And the problem of the university also. I have two problems in front of you. The first one is a question. Am I actually ready for work? That's a problem. It's a question. but it brings about worry for you. Ibig sabihin na may problema ka dito. Ready na ba talaga ako magtrabaho? Pag ako ba, pagdating ba sa lalo ngayon, it's a question, pandemic, di ba? Ready na ba talaga ako? Can I actually join the real world and start teaching? That could be a question for you, and that could impose a problem. Second problem, I would like to earn money in the stock market. So shout out to my students in EntrepMind. You know, because I am your professor, this is something that we always talk about. It's all about earning money. Anyway, so this is my problem. I want to earn money in the stock market. Therefore, I would like to predict the movement. You would like to predict the movement. Now, that's the problem. Your problem is how to predict the movement. Kasi gusto kong kumita. O, ang problema mo kasi, dahil hindi mo na-predict, matatalo ka. Ready ka na ba sa trabaho? Ang problema kasi feeling mo hindi ka handa. And these things can be solved by research. So let's begin with chapter 1, Introduction. Okay. So when we talk about introduction, again, we're going to talk about finding solutions to these two questions. Okay? Let's start with the most important thing, the research title. Always remember that the research title summarizes the entire content of the study. And in fact, I am going to create your chapter 1 by referring to your title, referring to a sample title. Okay? Next, the research title is actually the frame of reference for the whole study. And there is what we call now the alignment. Okay? We're going to talk about alignment here. Next, it enables you to claim the study as your own. It also helps other researchers to refer to your work as they look for or to test the theories themselves. But the most important quality of the title are these first two items. It summarizes the entire study, and the title should always be the point of reference in creating your statement of the problem, in actually formulating your conceptual framework, okay, and in actually creating how, of course, the hypothesis of the study is there, in actually forming how your chapter 2 will look like, and in actually looking at how are you going to present your chapter 4 all the way to the chapter 5. That is how powerful your research title is, at yun ang titingnan natin. Okay. So, I have a title example here. Now, this is from the University Research Office. Here's our problem. Am I ready to enter the workforce? Do I actually have the necessary skills and knowledge that will enable me to survive? Here's a title. Comparative analysis of the core competencies of PL-PASIG graduating students and the requirements of the industry. It is a skills gap analysis. I have a research title here. This is a sample research title, and the origination of the research title is from a problem that I have here. Okay, so skills and knowledge now focuses more, I'm leaning towards the core competencies. So why am I making a comparative analysis? How would I know if I'm ready to enter the workforce? There should be a benchmarking activity, ika nga, diba? So ibig sabihin, I would need to compare what I have now to the needs and the requirements of the industry. I need to know what the industry wants. And then from there, I'm going to test my own skills, test my knowledge, probably look at my attitude, KSA, diba? And I'm going to launch a research study for that. Therefore, I have my research title. Now, next thing that you need to work on, or since you already have your research title, are the two important things that is actually part of chapter 1. We have the introduction and the background of the study. For the introduction, the introduction is the first thing being looked at by other researchers and reviewers. Kung gusto mong i-publish ang study mo, then fortify your introduction because it gives you that opportunity to show these people that your research deserves attention. And how do you do that? You focus on highlighting the research gap. Now, what about the research gap? The research gap, kumbaga dito mo i-identify ng, you have to highlight what is exactly the problem. Why is there a need to conduct a research? Kanina, our problem is that we are unsure if we're ready to enter the workplace. This is the problem. We created the title. Here's your title right at the bottom. Comparative analysis of core competencies. Required by HR, industry, and what we have now. Ngayon ang tanong, what will now be the focus of your research gap? Okay? You focus now on the problem. Ang tanong, is there skills mismatch ba? This is an issue, skills mismatch. At marami pang iba. Then therefore, when you introduce your study, you have to focus this now. How relevant, how glaring is skills mismatch? Is it glaring enough that it now imposes a lot of concern for everyone, not just with the students, but actually in the industry, because there is a short of qualified workforce entering the workplace? That is something that you need to highlight. Kaya para lalo mo ma-accentuate, bakit kailangang pagtuunan ng pansin ng study mo? Kasi may gusto kang ma-highlight, may gusto kang ipaliwanag sa kanila. Ano ba kasi yung kulang? Asan yung mismatch? Ano yung gap? Anong pwedeng gawin? Ano ang kulang? Okay? Now, what about the background of the study? Kasi nami-mix to eh. A background of the study, there are 4 things that you have to look at. You have to review the area being researched. You have to discuss the current trends, facts, and evidences of such. You also need to discuss the results of the previous studies, because I am so sure this is not the first time that a researcher discussed skills mismatch. And you have, because of this, number 3, you have to start discussing the relevant history. At one point of our history, saan naging matindi ang usapin ng skills mismatch? You know, when pandemic strike us, may problema na nga sa skills mismatch. Imagine nyo, face-to-face pa to. Alam nyo, nung nagkaroon ng pandemic, mas lalo naming naging problema ito. Why? Because back then, you know, and let me just share this with you. Back then, we are actually allowed in a classroom setup that our students can ask us a question, and then from there, mas maa-address namin agad. Or we can allow our students to actually do everything na parang practice-based. As in, yun talaga ipapractice mo yung skill. No? Lalo na kung skill-based. Kung nasa HM industry ka, this is something that we can actually do with our students. Ibig sabihin, pagka bartending, we can actually show students paano ba talaga yung sinasabing bartending and all of those things. Pagdating ng pandemic situation, naging issue namin yan, we can no longer do bartending. I mean, kung ginagawa ng professors namin yan, ginagawa nila at the comforts of their home. Pero may kulang pa rin. So yung usapin na skills mismatch, mas grabe ngayong panahon na to as compared in the history. That is something that you might want to explore the background of your study. Moving on, no? Okay? Here's another problem. Want to earn money in the stock market? Here's the title. Okay. The relationship of macroeconomic variables to stock market, an empirical analysis of the Philippine Stock Exchange, and then, of course, there's a particular period. Okay? Coverage. Okay. So, moving on, let's look at the research paradigm. Sometimes you call this now your conceptual framework. By definition, no, the conceptual framework or a paradigm of the study shows a diagrammatic representation of your framework and what should be included in the section. Okay, there are actually 2 models that commonly being used in the academe for tertiary level pala. We have the IPO, we also have the IVTV. The IPO stands for the input process output, while the IVTV stands for independent variables, dependent variables. Okay? And ito yung tsura ng IPO, yung tsura ng IVTV. Okay. So, let's look at the title, and from there, I'm going to frame the paradigms or the conceptual framework, no? Here is the title. What are we going to do is that we're going to compare things. Compare what you have with what the industry actually needs. Okay? You compare. You now have the first entity being you and then the second entity as the industry partners. Therefore, kung titingnan natin, you're going to make a comparison. So, dito tayo papasok. Now, I have a question. Kung magko-compara ka, no, you're going to compare things, no, one entity over the other, okay? And, therefore, anong gagamitin natin? Input, process, output. Okay? Now, make no mistake ha, ang output po, okay, ang output po, hindi po yan recommendations. Recommendations found at your chapter 5, it does not suffices as an output. Your output could be in the form of a module, a program, policy system, quantitative model, or even a theory. Okay? In higher studies, sometimes it is a theory. Okay? So again, ito common mistake ng student, output, recommendation, hindi po ito output. Merong separate document na output and you include that in the appendix of your paper. So napansin nyo, I look at the title and from the title, I created the paradigm. IPO. Okay, tip. Usually, no, if you're comparing things or you are assessing things, assessment studies, making comparisons of two or more variables, usually IPO yan. Usually, ha. Next, here's another title, Relationship of Macroeconomic Variables to Stock Market. You're actually checking for impact or effect. You're checking for relationship. Pag sinabi niyong relationship studies, there is the presence of an independent variable and a dependent variable. And from the title, therefore, your paradigm or your conceptual framework is an IVDV. Okay? The independent to the dependent variables. Okay? So, you have the IVDV. So, ang laging arrow pag ano na, okay? IVDV. Tip. Usually, mga relationship studies ito. Okay? Okay, so moving on, no, apart from the conceptual framework, no, pag-usapan din natin ang theoretical framework. No? The theoretical framework serve as the basis of your research problem. And as per Adanza, no, 1995, it actually explains the phenomena upon which the investigation or the thesis investigation hopes to fill the vacuum in the stream of knowledge. Yung conceptual framework, it's a researcher-made framework, and the framework provides an overview of what you want to accomplish in the paper. Let me show you. Yep, may questions po ba? Okay. Anyway, moving on, no? Okay. Alright. So, here's another example, no? This is the title. I'm sorry, it's quantitative. It's a quantitative modeling of factors influencing Filipino investment decision-making. So, this is a theoretical framework, no? This is created by Arzen. So, ito yung theory niya, attitude toward behavior, subjective norms, perceived behavioral control, you have a behavior. So, ito yung IV, DV. Minsan kasi, no, meron ka multiple independent variables to a single dependent variable. Sometimes this happens, no? So, you have to find the right theoretical framework for your study. Pansinin nyo, pag nag-create ako ng conceptual framework. So, you now start selecting what your variables are. Which supports the theoretical framework. These are the variables, and this is the original contents of the theoretical framework. Kaya hindi po pwede na magkaroon ka ng research na wala tong theory na naka-anchor. So there should be a theoretical framework, and then there you have a conceptual framework, because there should always be a basis for your study. Again, I'm creating all of this based on the title that you have, okay? Titles that you have. So these are my variables. Yun nga lang, medyo multiple ang independent variables ko. And then you have the other items. There. Okay. So moving on, no, we are now going to create a statement of the problem. Okay. So tingnan lang natin yung time check. Okay, sige. All right. So we're now going to create a statement of the problem. From the title, remember, no, the SOP is a replication of the title of the study. It replicates the title. Okay. Let's create now your SOP. From the title, okay, first thing that you need to do, step number 1, you introduce your respondents. Who are your respondents? Based on your title, you have two entities, the students and the industry respondents, the HR personnel. So, given that na ganun yun, how do you introduce them? You introduce them using, what is the profile of the graduating students with respect to, you have your demographic profile. What is the profile of the industry practitioner respondent according to, and here's your demographic profile. That's the first thing. You introduce your respondents. Title. Next. Second. Step 2. You present the existing condition. Okay? What is the condition that you would like to look at? It's actually the core competencies. Diba? Are you ready to work? Are you ready for work? What are you testing? Are you competent enough? Do you have enough, your core competencies ba enough na para makatrabaho ka ng maayos? So you have to present that existing condition. Then how do you present or how do you describe the existing condition? Eh di syempre, you test for the level. Okay? What is the level of prevalence of the following 21st century skills among the graduating students in terms of, and then you enlist now what you call now your sub-variables mo, critical, all the way to the use of technology as a tool for learning. Okay? Okay. Alright. So, again, you have two entities. You test the core competencies possessed by the students. And then you probably may have guessed the next thing. You also present the existing condition dun sa second entity, which is, what is the level of requirement of the following 21st century skills among the industry partners? As you may have noticed, I'm looking at the title and I'm creating now your statement of the problem from title. Kaya sa totoo lang, ganun kami tumingin sa paper. Alignment. We look at your title, and from the title alone, we can already imagine your statement of the problem because everything starts with your title. Okay? So, tatandaan ito. So, again, two entities. We're now looking at what is the level of requirement, the skills requirement of the industry. Okay? So, after presenting the existing condition, again, step 1, pinakilala mo. Senior respondent. Step 2, you presented the existing condition. Step 3, you look at your title again. That is now where we're going to make the comparison. The third part is where you state your primary objective in the study. Diba? Remember your problem kanina? Are you ready for work? So what is now your primary objective? You wanted to compare what you have versus what is required. And that's the third step. That should be the composition of your final statement of the problem. You state your primary objective in the study. In this case, since I'm trying to make a comparison between core competencies of what you have versus what the industry so require, then I'm going to state it as my final SOP. Is there a significant difference between the graduating students' skills, prevalence, and industry skills expectations or requirement? You have an IPO. Ano yung output mo? Anong training roadmap ang pwedeng gawain para ma-address ang 21st century skill deficiency among the graduating students? Tanong, is the research helpful? Yes. Is the research novel? Yeah. Yes, but it is helpful. Okay? So later if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. I know I'm going really fast, but I hope that, you are learning. So, as you can see, no, we created the statement of the problem from your title. Di ba? Dali-dali lang. Dali lang tong thesis eh. Kayang-kayang gawin to. Okay. So, moving on, no, we're now entering chapter 2, which is the review of related literature. Please make no mistake that the RRL is there to make your paper thick. So, hindi pampakapal ng paper yan, no? Knowing your panel members from College of Education, do you guys know that they actually have a habit of counter-checking the chapter 2 versus what you place in chapter 4? Pag-usapan natin yan later, ha? Okay, ganun po kagagaling ang faculty members ng College of Education. Literal, OC po sila. I have had an experience with them already. They counter-check everything. Hindi ko po kayo tinatakot. Pinaghahanda ko lang po kayo. At katotohanan yun, ha? Okay. Now, in RRL, the approach should be thematic. Thematic mean, wala po ditong foreign. Diyos ko, Lord, 19 ko pong kopong to. Wala pong foreign study. Local study. Please po, hindi po ganito. We are expecting a thematic approach, and there's a lot of practicality for thematic approach. Wait until chapter 4 and you'll see the practicality of things. Now, from the title, I specified the sub-variables of what I am trying to test. Core competencies, ano po yung mga subcategories for core competencies? 21st century skills, critical, collab, comms, all the way to the use of technology as a tool for learning. So, ibig sabihin, when you create your study, that should be the manner of how you're going to show it. You start with all studies stating how important critical thinking is for work. And then second, you have to look for studies that specifies the need for collaboration skills. You have to, next paragraph, nandoon isusulat mo the need for communication skills. And when we speak of communication, it's not just about verbal communication. This also includes active listening. Okay? Okay? Next, creativity and innovation, so on and so forth. So, essentially, what are you actually looking at? Pag tinignan ko ang itsura ng chapter 2 ninyo, probably there could be a discussion of skills mismatch, yes. But there should be items for all of these 8 core competencies. May critical thinking, may collaboration, may communication, creative thinking, all the way to the number 8. So lahat ng studies na pointing towards the importance of critical thinking, lagay nyo sa isang paragraph all the way hanggang sa dulo. Yun po ang ibig sabihin ng thematic. Okay? So napapansin nyo yung alignment, kung ano yung highlight ko sa statement of the problem na nanggaling naman talaga sa title of the study, yun din yung arrangement. Ng chapter 2, wag po foreign, wag local. Okay? Wag po ganon. Next, what about naman for relationship type of studies? The relationship could either be positive correlation or a negative correlation. When we speak of a positive correlation, this means that when the independent variable, it increases, the same goes for the dependent variable. Okay? Pero kung ang independent variable nag-decrease, siguro syempre, of course, the dependent variable will also decrease ito. Okay, there you go. That's positive correlation. Okay? So, in the concept of the US dollar exchange rate to the index, the Philippine Stock Exchange Index, you have to include here studies that shows pag nag-increase yung independent variable mo, nag-i-increase din yung dependent. Or, pag nag-decrease yung independent variable mo, nag-decrease din yung rate ng dependent variable ninyo. Ganun po. Yun po lahat nung ilalagay yung studies. Medyo madabi-dabi mo sa relationship. Kasi, not only will you be discussing positive correlation, you will also be discussing the negative correlation. Okay? Pag sinabi namang negative correlation, it's an inverse relationship. The independent variable increases, inverse po sa dependent variables, and you have to discuss this. Okay, again, not foreign and local. Okay, so I'm using BA studies here. Halimbawa, when the interest rate decreases, bigla tumataas ang stock prices. Mga ganon. I-discuss nyo po yung mga results na ganon. So that is your chapter 2. Again, not to make your paper na makapal. Moving on, no? Yan, ito po. Here's your paradigm. Here's the discussion. The paradigm is IVDV. Because it's a relationship type of study, take a look. Oops. Take a look of the thematic approach for the study. Ganyan po siya. Okay, that's the difference between the two. Now, let's look at the research instrument. When you create a research instrument, do not forget to look at the statement of the problem, because the survey instrument provide answers to your statement of the problem, which eventually we'll start discussing in chapter 4. The common problem of students is that they have a statement of the problem which is entirely different from the survey. So, ang tanong, paano sasagutin ng survey, paano magbibigay ng kasagutan ang survey nyo sa problema kung hindi po sila aligned? So, therefore, when you create a survey, please always refer to your statement of the problem. Do not ever forget that, ha? So, here is my SOP number 1. My SOP number 1 is, what is the profile of the graduating student respondent according to there? Take a look. Ito ang survey. By the way, I sent a copy of my presentation to your president, no? So feel free to get it from him, no? Yung copy para may guide po kayo. So here is the sample. O, kita nyo? Ayan. O. Kung anong nandito, sakto sa survey, sa SOP ninyo. Next. Here is SOP 1, SOP. Here is an SOP 3. What is the level? And by the way, no, you're going to do the same thing for the industry practitioner respondent. Now, for SOP 3, what is the level of prevalence of the following 21st century skills among graduating students? So, I have a critical thinking. That's the first one. Tingnan nyo. Critical thinking. May mga karugtong pa yan. Hindi lang talaga kayang ilagay sa PowerPoint na mas makikita nyo, no? But, critical thinking, you have the statements, and then I am using a 4-point Likert scale, okay? Alright, so critical thinking, 4-point Likert scale. Okay, Likert scale. Bakit po naka-Likert scale pang weighted mean? Kasi po, your testing level you're trying to test level. So, there should be a scale of something. Okay, so in this case, I'm using a Likert scale, a 4-point Likert scale. Okay, something about here, in order to test a behavior, 10 is the minimum number of statements that should appear in your survey instrument. Okay, yan ang minimum. Pero kung ako sa inyo, kung ako po sa inyo, I suggest that you create something like that of 20 statements. 20 statements. Tanong, bakit po? Because your survey instrument will undergo 2 things. Number 1, validation, and the second, later I'll show it, reliability testing. However, given the pandemic situation, I'm not sure, no, sa directions of COED, but with the last semester, parang validation po ang ginawa natin. Now, what is validation or an expert's validation? This is where you look for a minimum of 5 experts who will look at, who will validate your survey instrument. Okay, when you do an expert's validation, do not forget to include your statement of the problem along with the survey instrument. At ano po ang gagawin na survey instrument? Ito po ang itsura. Nandito yung statement, andito yung accept, reject, modify. Yung statistician nyo, kukumputin po ang tinatawag na CVR and CVI. Okay, now, the thing with computation of CVR and CVI, okay, and depende po kasi kung ilan ang number of experts. But according to scholarly literatures, no, if you're going to make use of 5 experts, the computed CVR and CVI should be 1. Pag 5. Pero syempre, ibang usapan pag dumami ang number of experts. Okay? Assuming na 5, no? Ang inyong CVR and CVI ay dapat 1. Ngayon, balikan ko to. Bakit ang suggestion ko 20 statements? Gayong 10 dapat pwede na. Kasi po, pag nag-undergo kayo ng experts validation, I'm going to tell you right now. Yung 20 statements na yan, pwedeng matastas yan to even 5 statements na lang. Kung 5 statements na lang natira sa'yo, good luck sa'yo. Good luck sa'yo kasi paulit-ulit ka lang sa validation mo kasi magdadagdag at magdadagdag ka ng mga statements. So if I were you, you go with 20 statements. May mga experiences na po ako na ganito. There are 20 statements nang vinalidate, 5 na lang po ang natira, minsan 4 pa. So nagkakaroon ng problema yung group. They have to revise the statements again. So I suggest you go with 20 or more statements per variable. Okay? Now, although hindi na pinagdaanan ng education ito, no, what's good about validation, no, pagdating pagka-valid, pag expertly validated ang survey instrument ninyo, by the way, no, when you look for experts, make sure that they are experts in the field, no. So kapag sinabi mong assessment po ang inyong study or about pedagogy, di syempre, tapos grade 5 students pala, as much as possible, you look for experts na mas makakaintindi sa mga grade 5 students and experts in the field of pedagogy and assessment. Okay? So, di ba, gag-guide po kayo dito ng mga advisors ninyo. Now, another thing that we do with questionnaire after that, no, although I will not be discussing this much, is reliability testing. Okay? Because the validity, remember, is that you wanted to make sure that your survey instrument can measure what is intended to be measured. And the people that can gauge this, if the survey instrument can measure what is intended to be measured, are experts. Kaya experts validation. Ano naman po ang reliability? Ang reliability, you have to make sure that the survey can produce consistent results. And sorry sa sulat ha, can produce consistent results. So therefore, if-float nyo po yan so at least minimum of 30 respondents with the same quality. So I'm not sure with the directions of COED, no? But iba kasi nung last time, I don't know with ganito. Pero maganda pag-usapan na lang natin, no? Reliability is about conducting the survey and make sure that it can produce a consistent result, a minimum of 30 respondent. And the computed alpha should always be 80% and above, but that depends on the kind of research to be conducted. For behavioral type of researches, 80% and above is good enough. Next, let's talk about sampling technique. In doing the sampling technique, always remember, no, sa atin po, please lang ha, dapat naman ang minimum natin sana 100 ha, 100. Kapag ka naman mga tipong 50 na nga yung population, huwag nyo nang isample yan. Uulit lang po kayo ng thesis ninyo. Huwag nyo nang i-sample yung mga 50. Dapat naman you aim for 100. Okay. Now let's talk about sampling. Just remember that the reason why we do sampling technique is because we have to make sure that the sample can represent the answer of the entire population and there will be no bias. Okay? There will be no bias and the sample again can represent the answer of the entire population. Okay? So ito naman po sa study ha. Pag entire population na ang gagamitin, huwag na pong gumamit sa papel ng sampling technique. Kasi sa population na nga pong ginamit there's no need for you to put there a sampling technique. Okay? So, kung nag-conduct naman kayo kung sample naman na ginamit mo, saka ka magdi-discuss ng sampling technique. So, this is the Slovin's formula to compute for the sample size. Sana yon. Sample size po, sample size. This is how you compute for the sample size. Okay? Okay, so may oras pa tayo. Game, sample size. So these are the sampling techniques available, no? So discuss ko really quick. Simple random, tawag dito minsan fishbowl technique. Fishbowl technique po minsan ang tawag dito. Ibig sabihin, you select a sample in such a way that all individuals in the population have equal and independent chance of being selected for as a sample, 1:1, fishbowl technique. Stratified naman, okay? So you identify the subgroups in the population, and then when you create a sample, it should be in proportion to how they exist in the population. Stratified sampling is almost similar to cluster sampling. But instead of focusing on the individual, you are looking at the group. Okay, kaya halos pareho po sila. Systematic naman, you compute for the Kate level. And how do you compute for the Kate level? The formula is population divided by the sample. At kung halimbawa, ang population po, kunyari kunyari, 20. Okay, 20. Para madali mag-compute. Sample, 10. Kunyari, O 2. Ibig sabihin po, pag nagbilang ka, kung may listahan ka, yung pangalawa, so 1, 2. Bakit mo papasurvey si respondent number 2? Kasi siya po yung Kate level. Bilang ka ulit, 1, 2. Bakit ito papasurvey mo? Kasi po siya yung pangalawa, siya yung Kate level. What I'm trying to say about sample is that there should be a reason why you selected a respondent, or there should be a reason why you selected a person and ask that person to answer your survey and choose not to give a survey to another person. Pag tinanong kayo, anong reason why this person received a survey? Kasi po siya yung Kate level. Systematic. Bakit siya yung ganito? Kasi po yun ang result nung palabunutan sa simple random or fishbowl technique. Bakit ito pinili mo? Kasi yun po lumabas sa stratified and cluster sampling in conjunction with fishbowl technique. Another thing, pag sinabing simple random, na pagkakamalan po itong convenience sampling. Hindi po ito convenience sampling, my dear students. Simple random is fishbowl technique. Lagay mo yung names sa isang piece of paper, lagay mo sa isang maliit na bowl, roleta, kalog-kalog, kuha ka. Depende kung ilan yung sample size mo. Okay? Ang convenience, ikaw ang mamimili kung sino papasurvey mo. Okay, convenience. So, kahit sino gusto mo, yun na lang yun. Hindi po simple random ang tawag doon, Huwag magkakamali on that. Okay, next, statistical treatment. Okay, so with the statistical treatment, I'm going to skip this, because there will be another speaker for that and a far more expert in the field, So I'm going to skip this one. Okay, but for statistics, we are actually using softwares now. So it could be an SPSS, it could be PHStat. Okay, and then there are other softwares that are being used. Okay. Next, chapter 4 na po tayo, presentation and analysis of data. Okay, I have samples here. Very important. Table number should be continuous. Do not forget the title. Here is the data results. Chapter 4 talks about presentation and analysis of data. Now, question, how are you going to present the results of your study? My dear students, go back to your statement of the problem. Your first statement of the problem talks about the demographic, or what is the demographic profile of the graduating student respondents. Kung ang simula ay gender, age, sex, and then the course, then yun din ang arrangement ng pag-present ng study. Again, the table number should be continuous. There are two things that we need to see here. Number 1 is the presentation. The second one is the analysis of data. Ito po ang pag-present ng data. Here's an example. Table 1 shows the gender distribution, so on. 86% are female, 14% are male. This is the data presentation. And more often, this is an observation. Students stop with data presentation. That should not be the case. Tandaan, chapter 4 is about presentation and analysis. What makes your paper beautiful is the analysis that you put in the paper. Kaya importante ang second part. You analyze. Okay. Alam nyo, ang pinakamaganda sa data analysis, bigyan mo ng kahulugan bakit ganun yung results. Pero ang magbibigay ng basis doon sa study mo is that when you go back to your RRL. Okay? And that's the reason why it is in thematic format. Okay? Mas magaintindihan pag ito ginawa natin. Okay. Here's another example. You do your presentation. 52% patronizes USTV series, 48%. It says otherwise. Okay. Data analysis is that you have to substantiate the results of your study using the collected literature from Chapter 2. So, at pansinin nyo, the results of the study made by Wadwaran 2012 made it clear that, here you go. Saan nanggaling yung study ni Wadwaran? Nanggaling po to sa RRL nyo. Tanong, under what section kaya? Okay, under what section? Probably this is a section of lifestyle or probably has something to do with the practices of the graduating students. Kaya nga pwedeng some more on the communication, okay? Or culture, okay? So, ito yun ang reason bakit thematic po. It's because it's it's easy to substantiate the results of your study kung naka-thematic format. If the study is now on the if you are already on the part of your study where you need to analyze the communication skills of your respondents, nandun ka na sa communication skills. Kung ito po ay naka-foreign and local, and I'm telling you, foreign and local, maghahanap po kayo. You will spend time looking on how to substantiate the results of your study because it is stated in foreign and local. Whereas, if you presented your paper in a thematic format, alam mo agad kung saan section ka pupunta. Kung communication ang problema, you go to the paragraph under or a section under communication. You look at the chapter 2 or the scholarly journals that you have selected and you can easily substantiate the results of your paper because it is in thematic format. Thematic, hindi po kapritsyo yan. It is, imagine that the paper is so systematic enough to make things easier for us. Yun po ang titingnan natin. Ganito, yun nga lang, diba nabagit ko kanina, magagaling. Napaka-usi po ng mga faculty members ng COED, napakagaling. Totoo po to. Nagkaroon ako ng first-hand experience sa kanila. Naobserbahan ko sila sa kanila. It's really mind-blowing. Ganito sila kay Pet. Kita nyo to si Wadwaran. If in your RRL you have 50 journal articles dyan, iba-iba po ang author, may panel members po kayo dyan na nagbibilang. Ibig sabihin niyang 50 ang nilagay nyo sa RRL ninyo. Hahanapin po nila isa-isa sa chapter 4 nyo. May kilala po kung ganyan. At pag nakita niya, out of 50 na nilagay mo sa RRL, 25 lang pala ang ginawa nyo. Dalawa lang yan. Patatastas niya yung 25 na hindi nyo nilagay, na hindi nyo ginamit. Or, ang gagawin niya sa'yo, yung 25 na nawawala, pero nakalagay sa chapter 2 ninyo, ipalalagay niya sa chapter 4 ninyo. Ganun po. Hindi ko kayo tinatakot. Sinasabi ko lang, katotohanan. Kaya nga sabi ko sa inyo chapter 2 is not to make your paper thicker. Okay? Everything that you put in your paper, in your chapter 2, should and must be used in chapter 4 under the analysis of data. May panel members po kayong ganyan. Okay, now we're entering chapter 5. Alright, for chapter 5, again, we're going to talk about summary, conclusion, and recommendation. Finally, no? Okay, we're ending, no? Makakasulat na po tayo ng thesis. Alright. So, first thing that you need to look at is your statement of the problem. Nakikita nyo, lagi akong bumabalik sa statement of the problem. And remember, di ba, the statement of the problem stems from the title of the study. Now, let's look at your SOP. From the SOP, step 1, you have to now prove, step 2 is you have to provide an overview of your data. This is how you summarize, no? Okay? 55.5% out of school youth were male. 41.9 belong to the age bracket of 17 to 18 years old. 96.8% are single. I'm checking things, ha? 86.4% are living within Pasig. Kita nyo? At pwede nyo nang sundan to. That is how you summarize. Okay? Okay? Now, summary. How many SOPs do we have? No? If we have 5 SOPs, you should have, and this is expected, that you have 5 summaries. Again, if you have 5 SOPs, you should have 5 summaries. Next, Paano naman po pagdating sa... Okay. Next, let us now look at summary pa rin. Is there a significant, kasi ito yun eh, di ba? Is there a significant difference, perception, OSY, so on? This is an SOP. Please provide an overview of your data. Medyo mahaba po. I'm sorry. Kasi mga barangay yan. Pero tingnan nyo, there were no significant differences in the responses between the three groups, so on and so forth. Okay? Okay tayo. Teka, titignan ko lang. Time check. Okay pa tayo. Alright, good. Okay. So, kita? 5 SOPs. You should have 5 summaries. Okay? Kita nyo alignment? Kaya yan. Next, let's talk about conclusion. SOP, 5. Summary, 5 din. Okay. Provide a concise presentation of your data. Wala na po yung mga percentages. Conclusion na lang. Tingnan nyo. Majority of the out-of-school youth were male. 1.1. This is your 1.1, no? Who belongs in the age bracket of 17 to 18? This is your 1.2. They are single. This is your 1.3. Living within Pasig City. This is your 1.4. We're in their high school level, 1.5. And you can go ahead and look at the look at the alignment of your SOP to your conclusion. Look at the difference between the summary and the conclusion. Nakikita nyo? Kasi ang nangyayari, hindi na nakuha ng estudyante kung anong pinagkaiba ng conclusion and summary. Naiintindihan ko rin naman. But you don't now see the difference. Summary, you still have the percentages. When you conclude something, you just simply give the majority results. No numbers muna. And again, everything is based on your SOP. So you have 5 SOP, 5 summary. Wait. And pardon me for my handwriting. I know it's bad. Sabi nga nila, pag doktor daw, pangit magsulat. Eh, totoo nga pala talaga. Okay, 5 po ang conclusions. Okay? Kita, di ba? O yan. You'll have a copy of this, no? Magandang makita nyo. Tanong. Ayan, conclusion pa rin. O yan, no? Kita nyo yung difference now. Ayan. There. There is no significant, sorry naman, mali yung SOP ko, yung kanina, no? There is no significant difference in the perception of the OSY there. You just simply conclude. You don't provide the entire thing. Now, look at the recommendations. Finally, SOP 5, kasi baka mamaya masobrahan tayo ng Summary 5, conclusion 5. Paano po recommendations? 5 din? Hindi. 5 plus many. You know, here's a tip. Step 1. Alam nyo kung paano kayo mag-recommend? Simple. Look at chapter 4. Look at the results of your study. Yeah. Look at the results of your study. Alam nyo kung saan kayo magko-concentrate. Ako ang tip ko sa mga students ko is that when you look at when you do your recommendations, you look at doon sa mga part ng mga naka-Likert scale, okay? And then, ang tip ko sa inyo, tingnan nyo kung ano yung pinakamababa doon. Because kung ano yung pinakamababa doon sa mga behavioral type questions na may konting assessment or leveling, scaling, ito yung mga items that you really have to address. Okay? So what do I mean by that? No? Balikan ko lang. You still remember this here? This kind of questions? Like the critical thinking. When you're measuring critical thinking, look at the areas or look at the statements where they rated really, really low in terms of the weighted mean. For instance, no, if they really rated low on, let's say, analyzing competing arguments, perspective, or solutions to a problem, if this is where they really sunk really low nung kinumpute nyo yung weighted mean, You know, my suggestion is this is the part where you need to focus on your recommendation. Hindi yung nanguhula kayo. The reason why it was so difficult for students to recommend, simply because they didn't look at the entire results of their study. So you have to look at this. No? You can only recommend things, again, no, when you provide solutions, make sure that the solution is problem-oriented. And where can you find problematic areas? You simply go back to your chapter 4 and you simply go back to the statements where your respondents scored really low. So kung ito yung statement where your respondents really scored really low, then this is where should be the point of focus of your recommendation. This should be an area where you need to provide solutions. Now, balik ako. Let me go back to my chapter 5 recommendations. Ba? Step 2, see the things that you can improve. Now, why am I saying that there should be 5 plus many? Because sometimes, no, you will look at the statements, yung kanina pinakita ko, and then there are really areas wherein pantay yung scoring pero parehong mababa. Then you might want to give solutions for that. Okay? Yun doon dapat yung maging point of focus nyo. Hindi yung bigla ka mag-iisip na, I believe na dapat ito ang gawin. Pero pag tinignan namin yung recommendation mo, tinignan namin ang resulta ng study mo, alam nyo, walang alignment. Bakit magre-recommend ka ng ganito? Hindi nga yan ang problema. Ito nga ang problema. Bakit? Kasi akala na student, yay, patapos na, basta makarecommend, tapos sa usapan. Hindi po. Ang panel members nyo po sakuin. Ganun tumingin ng papel. Titingin po sa recommendation nyo, tapos babalik sa results ng study nyo. Kung hindi po kayo ganyan, gagawa ng papel nyo, ewan ko kung paano kayo makakaiwas sa major revision. Hindi ko po kayo tinatakot. Sinasabi ko lang kung gaano sila kagaling. Kasi first hand experience nakita ko po Umuupo, naging observant po ako sa panel nyo. Magaling po talaga sila. Now, bakit po 5 plus many? Not only will you look at the things that are really low, but you also need to provide recommendations for further studies. Naalala nyo yung lagi kong sinasabi? Research is a dichotomized term for what? Searching problems, finding solutions. And then, this is where you came in. You now recommend potential studies that can be explored by other researchers. There, you already have stated a solution, and probably out of your readings, there is a potential problem. Sana nakikita nyo pa to. There is a potential problem that would arise if there is a change of landscape. Kapag nag-change ang respondent, pag nag-change ang panahon, pag ito ang kondisyon, magkakaroon ng potential problem. And therefore, the reason why you have to recommend further studies. Okay? Susundan pa ako. Pag may questions, do not hesitate to ask. With finality, ulitin ko, if you have 5 or 7 SOPs, make sure that you have 7 summaries, 7 conclusions, 7 plus recommendations. Ito po ang reason ko that. If you have 5 SOPs, 5 summary, 5 conclusions, 5 plus recommendations. Okay. These are the things that are being looked at in a defense. Diyos ko po, pag-aralan na mabuti. And to end this, these are the things that we have discussed this afternoon. We've talked about what quantitative research is all about. How are we going to choose the research problem or the right research problem? And I kept on saying this, my dear students, you should be problem-focused, not solution-focused. You'll never know if the solution is the right solution if you don't know the problem that you're trying to fix. We formulated the title, and the title serves as, it summarizes the entire content of the study, and I agree with this because from the title, you can create your SOP. The SOP, okay, is the basis of how you're going to create a thematic RRL. And by the way, from the SOP, this is also the basis, the title is also the basis of how I'm going to create my conceptual framework. And from the SOP, I will be able to determine, or I'll be able to discuss the methodologies with how I'm going to answer my SOPs. And from the SOP, I will now have an idea of how I'm going to create or do a presentation and analysis of my data. The analysis of my data, how do you substantiate that? You make use of the RRL, which is written in thematic form. And then finally, the SOP should serve as the basis for the summary, conclusion, and recommendation of your study. So to formally end this, let me share you with a quote, not research, and no relation to the research. Always remember, my dear student, it takes a lion to survive the jungle out there. I fervently hope that you will learn all the things that you need to learn during your stay in PLP. Tatagan nyo ang sarili nyo, because the reality of things is that I hope that you will become the lion who will be able to go out there in the real world and be able to survive, because the real world is really a jungle and you need to know how to survive. Again po, that in all things God will be glorified. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Dr. De Manuel. Truly, that God may be glorified. That's an amazing, comprehensive presentation, Dr. De Manuel. Your talk made research looks easy. And your presentation, you have put a semester course long in 1.5 hours. Thank you, Dr. De Manuel. Research is one of the feared academic endeavor because of our next topic, which is statistics in research. And to introduce our third resource speaker who will talk on statistics in research, here is Mr. Jonimar Banaria.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Marlene. For the last speaker, we have a graduate of Bachelor of Secondary Education major in mathematics, with a master's degree in mathematics education in Rizal Technological University. Currently, she is a PhD candidate at La Consolacion University of Philippines, specialized in mathematics. Her publication, College Algebra Textbook, Workbook in Differential Calculus, Professional Works, Textbook Writer, Resource Speaker, Statistics and Assessment, Researcher, Eligibility, Licensure Examination for Teachers, the OIC Dean, College of Education. Let's put our hands together and welcome Ms. Myla Ansay.
Hello, good afternoon. Okay, to our Research Director, Dr. Cecil DM Spiritu, to our Dean of College of Business and Accountancy, Dr. Joanna De Manuel, to our different department heads, Ma'am Napay and Ma'am Bagyo, to our fellow teachers, and our dear students who will be conducting their research or thesis writing this semester, good afternoon. Okay, so allow me to present this topic about statistics. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, Dean.
Okay po. So let me start with the question, why study statistics? For those students who undergone with the statistics subject, this is just a review. And for those who passed the MMW, there is also a statistics. So this is also a review for both sections, BSED Math and BE Ed students. So why do we have to study statistics? As mentioned by Dr. Di Manuel, an understanding of statistical concepts can enable anyone to become a better and more effective problem solver. So we use statistics to solve problems. Okay? Second, it provides procedures to gather data systematically and logically for the advancement of knowledge. Similar to the definition given by Dr. Di Manuel, statistics is also applied and provide future or advanced knowledge, but it involves systematic and logical procedures. Third, it helps in organizing, summarizing, and analyzing data for the purpose of answering questions and testing theories. So we will not just answer the question, we will not just solve problems, but we can also test theories, or in the future, we can develop theories and principles.
Dean,
Yes, ma'am.
in your PowerPoint presentation is not on slideshow.
Not on slide. Wait lang po. Naka-slideshow po ako. Wait. Ay. Visible na po?
Yes, Dean, but still not on slideshow. We see the different slides on the left.
Wait po. Anyone can assist? Can anyone assist me? Teka. Wait lang po. Yun.
Ma'am Myla Unsay, you can click the
Yes.
the upper left corner po from the current slide.
This one. Upper left. From the beginning.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, from the beginning or from the current slide.
Nakita na po siya. Statistics. And then we have why study statistics. Is it visible na?
Ay, ma'am, dun po sa Google Meet, dun sa present,
Wait.
sa share screen, ma'am, may mga windows po dyan. And makikita nyo po yung windows na kung saan ang PowerPoint presentation nyo po is naka-full screen. Bali,
Wait. Oh.
sige lang po, ma'am. Take your time. Ms. Roan Sanchez, your microphone is, I will mute.
Wait.
Ms. Myla Unsay, do you want me to assist you? You can end your screen for now, ma'am, and then share screen po ulit kayo, ma'am. Sige po, ma'am, end na kayo.
Stop presenting.
Yes po, ma'am. And then, i-click nyo po yung present now doon sa may Google Meet po natin. Present now. Tapos may windows po dyan.
Which one?
Yung ano po, ma'am, share your screen. Click nyo po yung share your screen. Tapos, pag na-click nyo na po, ma'am.
Wait.
Okay, ma'am.
Wait. Entire screen or yung window?
Window lang po, ma'am.
Window. And then?
Yung PowerPoint presentation nyo po na naka-full screen na po.
Naka-full screen. Okay.
Yes
wait.
po, ma'am.
Full screen ko muna yung PowerPoint.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Full screen PowerPoint. And then, balik po kayo sa Google Meet. Tapos, i-click nyo po yung present screen. Sige po, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am Myla Unsay, I'll give you a favor, ma'am. Gusto nyo po, ibigay nyo sa akin yung file. Ako magda-download ng PowerPoint
Ay,
ng
sorry.
mabilisan. Tapos ako na.
Hassle na. Nawala na. How about this one? Is it really presented or not? Not yet?
Not yet, ma'am.
Not yet po.
Oh, yo. Mm.
While we're waiting for Dean Myla to prepare her PowerPoint, may I request students who may now post any questions, queries that you would like our resource speakers to answer later on during the open forum. You may type in your queries in our chat box.
Is it presented now?
Yes, Dean.
Okay na to?
Slideshow na lang po.
Oh my goodness. Anyari. Slideshow. Wait. Ay, bakit nagkaganyan? Wait lang ah.
Good afternoon po, Dean. May suggest po na si Jennerson na lang po mag-aano po ng slides. Tapos po, para po may present na lang po siya as slideshow po.
Okay. Send ko na lang sa kanya PowerPoint.
Yes po, Dean.
Dean,
Siya na lang po magpe-present po.
May subukan mo yung sa ilalim, yung sasabi ng yung sa baba ng PowerPoint mo. Di ba meron yung parang, ano yan?
Sa tabi ng video,
Parang
ma'am.
projector po na logo. Yung parang,
Icon sa lower right.
Bakit
Lower right.
nagkaganyan ngayon?
Sa lower right mo, May, yung
Wait
katabi
lang.
ng
Wait lang, stop sharing muna ako. Oh, back to basic. Sorry Ma'am Sel, sorry po. Option, wait.
Okay lang, ma'am.
Ito present now, window or tab.
window.
Ma'am?
Window mo.
O tapos po,
Dun sa baba ng PowerPoint, sa lower right, yung parang glass.
sa share ito. Share. Tapos
Share mo na. Dun sa lower right, Mamay, may parang glass na symbol dyan. Katabi nung tawag nito, yung
Zoom po.
zoom out po. Zoom out. Yung parang glass
etong sa Zoom.
sa ilalim, di ba? Sa lower right.
Opo.
Ay
Click
wala,
mo yan,
hindi
Mamay.
siya
Ayaw niya?
Din dun sa sa tabi ng redo na icon, nag-send po ako sa inyo ng screenshot ng icon po sa FB page niyo po. Sa Messenger. Alin sa dalawa, ma'am?
Wait. Stop sharing muna ako. Redo. Walang nasa baba. I miss this one. Slide.
Yes po. Yes po, Ma'am Myla. Dalawa kasi yan eh. Isang nasa taas, isang nasa baba.
Itong
Upper left corner.
Oo, yan.
Yan po. Yung sa tabi ng redo, merong slideshow icon dyan. Yun may naka-play.
Sorry, ano ba yan? Ito, nakikita na, hindi pa rin.
Pa po din.
Wala pa
Hindi pa po, di.
Wait. Send ko na lang. Sorry po. Kanino ko isa-send? Sorry.
Ma'am, sa akin na lang, ma'am. Jennerson, ma'am.
Anderson.
Kay Jennerson na lang po, ma'am.
Kala ko kaya ko nag-bodge eh.
Okay lang po, Dean. Thank you po.
Ay, nako, sorry.
It's okay, Dean. So while we're waiting for Dean Myla, may I request all students, if you have any questions regarding the presentations of Dr. Spiritu, of Dr. Di Manuel, and then later on the presentation of our Dean, you may write your questions in the chat box, and this will be answered during the open forum. This is the best time for you to ask questions because our experts are with us in Google Meet. Thank you. For students who haven't accomplished yet the attendance, the link is in our chat box. Kindly fill out the Google form so that your attendance will be added.
Ma'am, loading na po yung yung PowerPoint po, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Ayan.
Opening na po. Okay, ma'am, I got the PowerPoint. Presenting na po. Ayan po, ma'am. Visible na po, everyone.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you for the inconvenience. Okay, so ikaw na mag-assist, Henderson.
No problem, ma'am. I'm on it. Just give me the cue, ma'am.
Okay. Next slide, please. Anderson. Okay. So we are on the fourth. So it assists in describing and understanding the relationship between variables that are important in decision making. So as explained also by Dr. Di Manuel, we have to identify the variables, whether they are related or we are referring to the differences among these variables. So identification of variables are very important in dealing with statistics. Next slide, please. Statistical procedures can help us to measure current change and improve the forecasting process in predicting future with unerring accuracy. So meaning to say, we use statistics to predict future outcomes. It will provide, in terms of regression analysis, predictive, and forecasting. Okay. Without statistics, quantitative research is impossible. So also as discussed by Ma'am Di Manuel, how important is statistics in quantitative research? From the word quantitative, root word is quantity, we have to give meaning to the data. Okay? So without statistics, we cannot do quantitative research. And last, tools are useful in increasing our knowledge, but it is not the end in themselves. Meaning to say, if we apply statistics in any research, it is just the beginning. It is not the end. We are going to start with another knowledge that will come out of the research or study. Okay, next. So let us define and review the definition of statistics. It is a science of collecting, organizing, presenting, analyzing, and interpreting data for the purpose of assisting in making effective decisions. So if you notice, there are 5 important processes in the definition of statistics. It is a science because it involves scientific method. Okay? So we have the collecting, organizing, presenting. That is the first part of stat. And analyzing and interpreting, that is another type of statistic. Okay? It is a set of principles and logical procedures developed to collect, classify, summarize, test hypotheses, draw inferences, and make predictions. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. So as I mentioned a while ago, there are different types of statistics. The first 3 parts, which is in collection, presentation, and characterization of data, that is under descriptive statistics. And when the researcher needs to describe or summarize the distribution of a single variable or data derived from samples or population, descriptive statistics is used. Okay? If you just describe the data or explain the data from the table or from any presentation, then that is descriptive. Okay? And then the other one is the inferential statistics. When we say inferential, we make conclusion or inferences out of the gathered data, which can be from a sample or can be the population. When the researcher wishes to estimate the relationship between 2 or more variables about the population under study on the basis of data obtained from a subset of the population, that is actually an inferential statistics will be used. Okay? Next. Okay, so let us identify or differentiate samples from population. Dito madalas tayo nagkakamali regarding how are we going to describe our respondents or the subject of the study. That is population. When we say population, it is the totality of the items or things under consideration. Example of a parameter, it is a summary measure that describes a characteristic of a population. So if you give description out of the population, then it is called parameter. Now, an example of a population, it means totality. Let's say, for example, if you make use of the entire or the total number of total number of students at PLP, that is population. Kasi the population, the subject here is the students of PLP. If all of the students in PLP has been used as your respondents, then that is population. Or, if you just identify a specific grade level or year level, that can also be population. Okay? Let's say, for College of Education, all BSED students or all BEd students, that can be a population. Okay? Now, sample. A sample is a subset of the population that is selected for analysis, meaning it is a part or a representative of the population. So, if, for example, our population is the PLP students, then our sample can be students from the College of Education. So, magkaiba yon. Kasi ang total population natin na tinatawag is students from PLP. And the sample that we are getting will be the students from the College of Education. And ano po ang tawag on how you are going to describe or computed from sample data that is used to describe the summary of the sample based on the entire population. That is what we call statistic. So magkaiba yung statistics at statistic. Pag without S, it is a summary measure to describe the sample out of the population. If it is statistics, then it is the course, the program, or the subject. Okay? Now, recall the variables mentioned by Dr. De Manuel. These variables are any characteristics of people, things, or events that can take on different values. Characteristics. Or it is an observable characteristic of a person or object which capable of taking several values or of being expressed in several different categories. Those things that have characteristics, or you can identify the characteristics, the traits, categories, then those are variables. Okay? And there are different types of variables classified into dependent and independent variables. So the variable that can be observed and measured by the researcher is called a dependent variable, while the variable that is systematically manipulated by the researcher is called an independent variable. Sometimes we are confused which one is dependent and which one is independent. From the word itself, independent, meaning to say it can stand alone. And dependent can have changes depending on the other variable. Okay? Okay. And these variables can be categorized into categorical and numerical, which are usually included in the first SOP of your thesis. These categorical variables are values or observations that can be sorted into groups or categories. Those things that can be categorized are called categorical. Example, can have sex or gender. We have civil status. We have educational background and religious affiliation. Those are some examples of categorical. While the numerical values or variables, these are values or observations that can be measured. And these numbers can be placed in ascending or descending manner or order. Example, can also be included in the first SOP, which are your profile. It can be the height, the weight, the grade, or the score in the test, score in any achievement test, or in any performance tasks. Okay? Next slide, please. Now, after identifying the different variables, then we have to know some methods on how we can collect data. Number one is a case study. A case study is the term usually refers to a fairly intensive examination of a single unit, such as a person, a small group of people, or a single company. It involves measuring what is there and how it got there. It is historical, and it can be enabled the researchers to explore, unravel, and understand problems, issues, and relationships. So, basically, if it is a case study, then it is more on qualitative, not quantitative, because of some methods that will involve in that type of study. Next, you can also collect data from diaries. But in education, based on our research agenda, we cannot use diaries as a form of collection of data. Bakit po? Diaries is a way of gathering information about the way individuals spend their time and professional activities. Usually, ang nagko-collect po ng data from diaries are the crime and police report. Because of the personal data of an individual are involved in that kind of data collection. Next, please. Very common is the questionnaire. Questionnaires are a popular means of collecting data, but are difficult to design and often require many rewrites before an acceptable questionnaire is proposed. Okay. As mentioned again by Dr. Di Manuel, your questionnaire must be valid. And reliable. That makes it difficult to design. Also, in terms of the content of the questionnaire, it is very difficult to measure the content that will involve in that particular instrument. Okay, example of the questionnaire is also the one presented by Dr. Di Manuel, identifying some statements, and then you have the rating scale of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. Or you can have the Likert scale, you can have the degree of influence. Okay. Another one is interview. Interviewing is a technique that is primarily used to gain an understanding of the underlying reasons and motivations for people's attitudes, preference, or behavior. Interviews can be undertaken on a personal one-to-one basis or in a group. They can be conducted at work, at home, at the street, or in a shopping center or some other agreed location. Okay. Interviews are usually a method of collecting data or in a qualitative or mixed method. When we say mixed method, you can have the questionnaire and an interview as a method of data collection. It is mixed, combination of two or more gathering of data. Next. Okay, portfolio. The compilation of a problem portfolio is recording information about how each problem arose, methods used to solve it, difficulties encountered, etc. This analysis is also raises questions about the person's use of time. The main problem which this method and the use of diaries is getting people to agree to record everything is sufficient details for you to analyze. It is very time consuming. Why is it very time consuming? Because it takes time to complete a portfolio. I know that BSED 3 Math and BEd 3A are familiar with portfolio. You are done with your ASL 1 and your ASL 2. Okay? Focus group interviews, usually it is very much applied in qualitative data. Ito po yung tinatawag nating FGD, involving focus group discussion. A focus group is an interview conducted by a trained moderator in a non-structured and natural manner with a small group of respondents. The moderator leads the discussion. The main purpose of the focus groups is to gain insight by listening to a group of people from the appropriate target market, talk about the specific issues of interest. An example that we had this type of data collection is the one conducted by our previous former president, Dr. Cory Raimundo, wherein the focus of the study is about out-of-school youth and early pregnancies. So it should be very specific and it is non-structured. That is qualitative research. Okay. And then another one, the last one is observation. This involves recording the behavioral pattern of people, objects, and events in a systematic manner. Okay? So, observation method, it is also applied in qualitative. Okay. So, since you already have the methods of collecting data, then those instruments should be identified to be valid and reliable before it will be used. Okay? And as we recall, there are different types of validity of an instrument. By the way, what is validity? Validity, it is it measures what it intends to measure. Okay? So there are 3 types. It can be content-related evidences, wherein we can use content validity. We can have CVR and CVI, explained by Dr. De Manuel. The minimum number of validators will be 5. Then, the more, the merrier, the better. Okay? So, do not focus on 5. As much as possible, the least number is 5. But you can add more. Okay? Second, you have criterion-related evidences wherein you can use concurrent validity and predictive validity, which can be run in SPSS or any statistical application that is using the Pearson product moment correlation, concurrent and predictive. In predictive, you can use the regression analysis for predicting the future outcomes. Then we have construct or related evidences, that is construct validity. What are the characteristics that is being applied or used in construct validity? Example of this are the attributes, attitude, values, traits. Yun po ang ginagamit na to determine, those are the variables that are being used to have this construct validity. So pag ang variable nyo is about attitude, then it should be construct. Okay? Then, if it is about a specific subject or discipline, then you must have the content validity. Okay? Content validity. Okay? Next. Next, please. Anderson? Okay. So let us still recall the different types of reliability. Ano ba ang reliability again? It is about the reproducibility and the consistency of or in methods and criteria. Okay? So we can have stability, equivalence, internal consistency, raters consistency, and decision consistency. We are going to make use, if it is about reliability, we are going to make use of the Cronbach alpha and the Spearman and other statistical treatment, okay, for reliability. Next, please. Okay. Now, let us now identify the sampling technique that we are going to use. It can be classified into probability and non-probability samples or sampling technique. When we say non-probability, it is one in which the items or individuals included are chosen without regard to their probability of occurrence. In non-probability, meaning to say, in non-probability, it depends on the criteria on how you are going to select the sample or your respondents. While the probability sample, it is one in which the subject of the sample are chosen on the basis of unknown probabilities. Okay, next slide, please. So let us identify the probability samples. One is the simple random sample, which is, an example of this is a lottery. Yung bunutan na tinatawag nyo, fishbowl technique, that is simple random sample, wherein every element or every respondent has an equal chance of being selected as a sample. Now, in stratified sample, from the word stratified, root word is strata, which means per level. Okay? So you're going to classify first by strata or by level. Example, first year, second year, third year, fourth year. That is by strata. Okay? Next, for systematic sampling or sample, you can identify the sample by taking every nth element or kth element in the population. Let's say, for example, example given by, nakikinig ako yung Ma'am Di Manuel eh. So, example given by Ma'am Di Manuel, there are 20 total population and you want only how many? Let's say 10. So, ang gagamitin niya every second of the population. So, your first member of the sample is 2. And then 4, 6, 8, 10. 12, 14, 16, 18. So then, therefore, you can come up with the 50% of the sample from the population of 20. That is systematic. Okay? Now, for cluster sample, from the word cluster, meaning it divided into different groups or subgroups. Example, a cluster or a group of professionals. You are going to identify these professionals of, let's say, doctors, engineers, teachers, accountants, etc. So that is by clustering your sample. And the last is the multi-stage. If you have to consider, or if you want to consider a lot of, or the details of the population, do so you can make use of multi-stage. What do you mean by multi-stage? You select first by cluster, meaning i-group mo muna, and then you can apply simple random on how you will get the sample size. You can also make use of the stratified identification of the sample, possible samples by strata or year level, and then you can apply simple random to get the proportional number of samples. So you can also apply multi-stage samples, provided, kailan po ginagamit ang multi-stage? If you have a lot of or a bigger number of population and clustering or strata or year level are important in that particular study. Okay? While in the non-probability samples, we have 3. Convenience sample. When we say convenience sample, these are the samples or individuals that are readily available. Example, nowadays that we are in a campaign, kasi election na, then you can have convenience. How are you going to do that? You stand in one street, in one post, then lahat ng dadaan doon, which you think are old enough, 18 years old and above, then you can immediately ask a question. Sino ang gusto nyong iboto as president? Sino ang gusto nyong iboto as vice president? So on and so forth. Okay? Because they are readily available. Kung nasa supermarket kayo, then nandudun lang yun, pwede. That is convenience. Okay? While purposive sample, okay. From the word purpose, there should be a specific purpose. How do you identify those samples? Not because they are second-year students, you will apply purposive. No. There is a specific sample or characteristics that you have to identify, and that is inclusive. Meaning to say, sila lang kasi ang nagtataglay ng ganong characteristics needed in your study. So, let's say for example, so it is very seldom in the College of Education to have this purposive sample. But this is a common sampling technique for the College of Nursing. Bakit po? Because there are specific cases that they have to attend to or help to solve problems. Example, those who are smokers. Kasi pag nag-smoke, tendency magkaroon ng sakit sa atay or sa liver. Ayan. So, that is a certain purpose. There is a purpose, so there is inclusive characteristics and criteria. Why do you have to select those respondents as your sample? Okay? And the last is quota. Ayan, quota na tayo. Pag sinabi natin quota, it is a required or stipulated proportional percentage. Ayan. So, there is a specific number required. Okay? So, hindi rin tayo nagkokota. Okay? Next slide, please. Okay na po tayo dyan. Next. Next po. Next po. Okay. So, this is included in your chapter 4, data presentation. In data presentation, in chapter 4, we have 3, or we have only 2 presentation. Number 1 is through table presentation and the textual presentation. Remember that if you presented the information or the gathered data into table, below that is the textual presentation. You are going to explain in words the content of the table. Okay? And then after the discussion of the table in textual form, you are going to apply and identify some studies in your related literature or related studies in chapter 2 to support the gathered data. Okay. So, kadalasan po, this is the number 1 presentation, and I think ito po ang gamit natin. You have the, let's say this is the score, we have the frequency and the percentage. That will answer SOP1. Okay? So, this is an example of a table presentation. Okay? Hindi po lahat ng generated sa SPSS ay nilalagay sa table. Only those necessary and pertinent data. Okay. Another one. If you're going to present in a pie chart, ito po yon, that is pie or circle graph, you have also to present it in table presentation. Okay? Pero usually, we have only the table presentation. Okay? Next, this is an example of bar graph, specifically a histogram. What is the difference between a bar graph and a histogram? A histogram is a bar graph. It's just that there should be no spaces between bars. But if there are spaces between bars, then ang tawag na doon is bar graph, which can be classified into vertical, horizontal, dual, etc. Next, please. Okay. Ayan. This is specifically now for your chapter 4. You're going to present the data based on the generated information from the SPSS. So, as SPSS, it is a statistical package for social sciences. A general purpose of SPSS is widely used in social sciences, particularly in sociology and psychology. It can import data from almost any type of file to generate tabulated reports, plots of distribution and trends, descriptive statistics, and complex statistical analysis. SPSS is a good first statistical package to perform quantitative research in social science because it is easy to use and because it can be a good starting point to learn more about statistical packages. Okay. We have SPSS version 21, 23, and now at present there is version 26. So you are going to identify and please include the number or the version in the SPSS. Okay. And the limitation, have less control over data manipulation and the statistical output than other statistical packages. As I always say to you students, pagdating po in terms of the use of computer, garbage in, garbage out. Pag mali ang input, definitely mali ang output. Okay? This includes coding and encoding. So you have to do it, anong term doon? Yung tama lang, hindi ka pwedeng magkamali doon. Kasi bakit po? Isang mali lang doon will mean a different analysis and different conclusion of data. Next, please. Okay. So your data can be run or can be classified as different statistical treatment can be classified as parametric and non-parametric. Okay? So, identify na lang natin. If it is parametric, then you can have an assumption. No assumption made in non-parametric. The focus of parametric test, it is based on the mean or the central tendency. And in non-parametric, it focuses on the median. Okay? In terms of correlation, we can use Pearson product moment correlation in parametric and Spearman raw or Spearman rank in parametric. In terms of probabilistic distribution, in parametric, it should be established that the data are in normal distribution. While in non-parametric, it should be arbitrary. So, hindi masyadong mahigpit sa non-parametric. In terms of population knowledge, in parametric, require to identify the population. While in non-parametric, it does not require the knowledge about population. Ibig sabihin, pwedeng hindi mo alam ang totality. Basta ito lang ang gagamitin mo. Then you can use non-parametric. But in parametric test, you cannot use parametric test if you do not know the population. Okay? So, the first thing to do is to identify the total number of population before you apply parametric test. And for use, it is for interval data and balik po, interval. O it can be for interval and ratio. While for non-parametric, it is nominal or in categorical data. Acceptability, we can also, both variables can be used. It's just that in non-parametric, it is attributes. Bakit attributes? Because it is nominal. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. So, ito po ang importante at dapat maintindihan ng mga estudyante natin that will be having this thesis writing. If it is about comparing means, this topic involves in your chapter 3. Doon sa statistical use. Okay? If you want to compare means between two distinct independent groups, then you can make use of the two-sample t-test or simply stated t-test. If it is non-parametric, then we will use Wilcoxon rank sum test. Now, if we want to compare the two quantitative measurement taken from the same individual, ano yung the same individual? Let's say, pre-test and post-test. That is the same individual. Ang tawag pong gagamitin natin, ang statistical treatment that we are going to use is t-test or paired or match. Okay? And for non-parametric, it is still Wilcoxon signed rank test. Estimate the degree of association. When we say association, it is degree of relationship. Then we are going to make use of Pearson product moment correlation. Counterpart nito in non-parametric is Spearman rank correlation. Okay, next po. Okay. We can also have the following non-parametric test. One-way chi-square, two-way chi-square. We have median test. Next slide, please. Kruskal-Wallis. We have Friedman, chi-square, sign test. Next po. Okay. So, if I just want to make a suggestion, para sa susulat ngayon, please, if na-assign na sa inyo kung sino ang inyong statistician, aside, ang una nyong ipagawa na sa statistician, if you do not have yet the instrument for validity and reliability, is to identify the appropriate statistical test that will apply in your study. Kaya po nagkakaroon ng problem. Is it the relationship or is it the differences? If you identify the relationship, then please ask and verify the provided statistician so that he or she can advise you the appropriate statistical test to be used or applied in your paper. Okay, let us have an example. Wait po, pakibalik. This is an example of correlation or relationship. Identify the variable. Bakit siya relationship? Later, you can ask question. You want to know if a nurse's absences from work in 1 month, which is represented by Y, can be predicted by knowing his or her score on a test of occupational burnout. Okay? So there are two variables. You have the burnout and the absences. Burnout and absences. Since it is correlation, then we can have the dependent and independent variable. Which one is dependent? Which one is variable? Which one can stand alone? Can stand alone is the burnout, and the dependent is the absences. Pag burnout ka ba, tama. If higher ang burnout na nararanasan mo in work, then absences will be affected. Pwedeng mas mataas ang absences mo. Kasi burnout ang pinag-uusapan. Okay. So there are 10 participants. Ito po ay dapat nakalagay sa Excel. Sa Excel muna tayo maglalagay nito. So ang participants natin is 1 to 10. And then we have the burnout. Ito yung kanilang scores. And then you have the absences. Okay? Should be run by SPSS. Nowadays, we will not use traditional computation for hypothesis testing. So, no need to include the formula. Pwede naman pong ilagay yung formula. Pero formula na lang because we are generating the data from SPSS. Basically, you have to answer lang the question, what kind of statistical treatment will be used to answer your SOP. Okay? And you can explain it in words or in text. Okay? Next. Okay. This table is the one generated from SPSS. Dito po kami nagkagulo ng mga nakaraang semesters sa research nila. Bakit po? The presentation or the gathered data from SPSS should not be the same data presented in your chapter 4. We have a standard format of presenting table in correlation, in t-test, in one-way ANOVA, etc. So, please follow. Huwag po tayong tamarin na iayos yung ating papel. Okay? Ito ay generated ng computer ng SPSS. Only the pertinent information should be included in the table presented in Chapter 4. Ano po ang pertinent data here? We have itong my SIG two-tailed that is 0.029 and we have 0.686 and also the correlation is significant at the alpha 0.05 level two-tailed. Meaning it is non-directional and the level of confidence is 95% because the margin of error is 5% presented in 0.05. Okay? So, again, this one is presented or come from the SPSS, generated ng SPSS. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. I think this is the standard in presenting the correlation. Sa paper nyo in chapter 4, you have to identify the variable. We have the occupational burnout and you have the absences. As I said a while ago, you have to identify only the important data or figures to be included in the table in chapter 4. So, we have computed R. But why computed R? Because we are dealing with relationship or correlation. So, that is 0.68. Kung marirecall niyo yung table kanina. Then, if it is relationship, then you have to identify the degree of relationship. This is a strong positive correlation. Ano ang ibig sabihin ng strong positive correlation? Since it is positive, as one variable increases, the other variable increases. Halimbawa, ang pinag-uusapan natin dito is occupational burnout. Okay. If mataas yung level ng burnout, then definitely that will lead to more absences in the workplace. Okay? So that is why it is interpreted as high or strong. It can be high or it can be strong positive relationship. Then we have the p-value. Yung p-value natin is 0.029. Hindi ko na makita po dito. Okay. And then the decision is to reject HO. When we say reject HO, it is a way of stating the null hypothesis. If you reject the null hypothesis, then you will accept if you reject the null hypothesis, meaning there is kasi ano yan non-directional. There is no significant relationship or there is a significant relationship. Ang sabi, reject mo yung hypothesis. So, therefore, it is significant. Sabi, it is stated that there is no significant relationship. And the computation and the data reveals that you have to reject the null hypothesis. So therefore, you come up with the interpretation that it is significant because there is a difference or there is a significant relationship between occupational burnout and absences. Okay. Next slide, please. This is about the use of ANOVA, one-way ANOVA. Okay? Pag sinabi natin ANOVA, it is analysis of variance. Okay, analysis of variance. Okay, since usong-uso ang temperature or getting the temperature before you enter in an establishment, ito yung magandang example na nahanap ko. Based on the preceding result, what do you conclude about the claim that the 3 ages group populations have the same mean body temperature? Okay, ito po ay kinuha dapat same time. Dapat the same time to. Kasi iba-iba ng temperature sa umaga, sa 12, sa noon, at saka in the afternoon. So, eto, kinuha to, same time. Okay? And these are the categories. Yung 18 to 20, 21 to 29, and 30 and older. So, there are 3 categories. Hindi na pwede natin gamitin dyan ang t-test. Kasi ang t-test will only be used for 2 variables. Since there are 3 categories, then we're going to make use analysis of variance, one-way ANOVA, and the variable being compared is the temperature. Sa Tagalog, may pagkakaiba ba ang temperature ng nasa edad 18 hanggang 20, 21 hanggang 29, at yung 30 pataas, para po madaling maintindihan. Okay, next slide please. Okay. Again, this is also generated from SPSS. Actually, I have the computation. Ewan ko lang kung makikita ulit natin. But I will show you later. So, eto po siya. You have the degrees of freedom, the sum of squares, mean squares, and then we have F. Ito po ang importante dapat nating ilagay. You have the F test to, and then you have the SIG, which is 0.935. How are you going to present this in your chapter 4? Next slide, please. Ayan. So, nilagay ko na dito yung variable, which is the age. And then we have the categories. 18 to 20, 21 to 22, 30 and older. Then we have the F value. This is 0.067. We have the mean square. Dun sa kabilang slide natin generated from SPSS. We have the P value. Okay. 0.939. And then you have the decision and the interpretation. Okay. Again, students, kaya po meron kayong statistician for you to guide and compute these types and apply this type of statistics. Okay. So, wait lang po. Ayan, sige. So, yung accept HO. Kasi bakit? Ano po ang ating null hypothesis? There is no significant difference. Kasi tatlo sila. There is no significant difference in the temperature of these ages. Walang pagkakaiba ang temperature ng 18 to 20, ng 21 to 29, ng 30 and older sa ganitong oras. Yun po ang ibig sabihin nun. Walang. So we have to accept. Yun ang null hypothesis. And based on the computed value na 0.935, ang decision mo dyan is accept HO. Bakit 0.93 bakit i-accept natin ang null hypothesis? It should be compared from the level of significance 0.05, which is 95% level of confidence and 5% margin of error. So accept, meaning to say, the decision is to accept, meaning there is no significant difference. So, ang interpretation mo dyan is no significant difference. Okay? Ito po ang i-explain in textual. No significant difference, accept, F value, and itong P value. Okay? Yan po ang i-explain in textual form. So, kung sino man yung inyong SP statistician, he or she can guide you on how to interpret those figures or those numbers to put into context. Okay? Kasi dapat contextual ang ating approach in explaining the data from the table. Okay. Next po. Okay. Now, I provided this example. This is an example of computation manually. So, suppose that you have read that the average high school senior can identify 32 out of 70 countries on a map of the world. You give this test to the 16 students in your geography class, and their scores are as follows. These are the raw data. Ayan. And then, applying the step-by-step hypothesis testing, ito po yan lahat gagawin. Identify or give the HO or the null hypothesis. Number 2, alternative hypothesis. And number 3, number 4, number 5. Next slide, please. Ayan. Then you compute the test statistics. Okay? So, it makes use of t-test. T-test because it is from the population down to the sample. A sample of 32 out of the population. Okay? So, that is t-test. And then, applying this manual computation. And then, before you come up with the conclusion. If you apply this type of computation, then you will not interpret the data in 95% or 0.05% level of significance. You have to compare it on the critical value based on the table of t-test. So maghahanap pa kayo ng table ng t-test, i-interpret nyo pa siya in the normal curve, whether it is accepted or rejected based on the presentation on the rejection and acceptance region. Okay. Again, pinresent ko lang to. Ito lang po dapat ang ilalagay. Itong sinusulat ko, inaano ko ng cursor dito. Ito lang ang dapat na ilalagay na formula. Okay? But you don't have to write all the formulas kasi you are using SPSS. Next slide, please. Okay. This is an example of non-parametric test, Spearman-Rowe or correlation from ranks. Wag pong malito. Not because they are two variables and they are rank, pwede na ang correlation. You have to identify ano po ang what kind of variable are being ranked. Okay? So kung dito, 2 judges have ranked the entries to a painting contest. So, identifying if there is a significant relationship or differences between Judge A and Judge B. Okay? Next slide, please. Okay. This is an example of a test, standardized achievement test. That is before and after. So, what is your null hypothesis? Is there sufficient evidence to conclude that the preparatory course is effective in raising scores at 0.05 significance level? Okay? Conclude, that evidence conclude, raising. Pwede bang mapataas? So that is directional because of the word raising. But it is t-test, paired. Why is it paired? Because it is before and after. Meaning to say, one respondent, si respondent A, will take the test before the implementation of a program, and he or she will also take the test after the implementation of the said program. Okay? Next slide, please. Ayan. So this is an example of the data generated by SPSS. That is paired. So naka-identify na po doon if it is paired or matched, t-test, or simple lang, etc. That is paired. We have the mean, we have the T, we have the DF, and ito po yung importanteng dapat ilagay, yung SIG na 0.029. Next slide, please. Okay. So, again, this is the table that should be included in your chapter 4. Before a preparatory course for the variable and after a preparatory course, you have the test statistic computed, negative 1.352, degrees of freedom is 9, and the probability value is 0.209. It was stated that it is 95%. Tandaan po natin sa College of Educ, the research will be 5% margin of error and 95% level of significance. Or can be 99% or 0.01%. Okay? Pero pagdating po sa College of Nursing, depende. If it is experimental, then it would be 99%. Kasi hindi natin pwedeng taasan ng error sa 5% kasi delikado. Buhay ang pinag-uusapan po sa mga data nila. Unlike sa atin, magkamali lang tayo, just erase the board, wala na. Walang buhay na mamamatay, no? Na mawawala. Okay. So, p-value is 0.209. That accept the null hypothesis. What is the null hypothesis? There is no significant difference between the preparatory and the between and after the preparatory course. Not because, no significant difference, hindi na siya importante, ha? Wag po ninyong mabigyan ng maling interpretasyon. Ibig sabihin lang, you have to go deeper. Doon magsisimula ang panibagong study. So bakit after implementing something, wala pa rin pinagbago? Pareha pa rin nung before at nung after, even though you implement something. Let's say, nagkanda ka ng remedial, and then yung score nila nung pre-test, the same pa rin sa post-test. So, you can come up with a good recommendation because of that, identifying the conclusion na there is no significant difference. Okay? Next po. Okay, chi-square. In chi-square, these are the examples. A researcher wanted to find out the relation of handedness to brain organization and function. Ang categories niyan is left-handed and right-handed. This chi-square specifically is the good of fit test na tinatawag. At alam niya ng mga statistician natin. Okay? Good of fit test. And then another example is this. A researcher is interested in surveying attitudes of high school students concerning high school seniors about whether they believe that a college education is becoming more important, less important, or about the same. Okay. So, based on the presentation I provided a while ago, you can come up with a problem na pwedeng napapanahon or that you can give a solution, especially nowadays. Okay? Next slide, please. For the last. Okay. We are entering a new world in which data may be more important than software. The point here is this. People created software because they cannot accommodate the data manually. They cannot accommodate the big or large amount of information manually. So, sino magbibigay or ano magbibigay ng meaning about this data? It is about the use of software. Sinabi lang, it is more important. Meaning to say, they are both important. Pero mas importante yung data because of the bigger number of information or data. And the last one. Ayan. Without data, you are just another person with an opinion. Okay. What does that mean? In research writing, opinion does not matter. Why? All the things that you are going to write in your paper must be data-driven. And you have to give meaning to the information or data gathered. So, whatever it is, whether it is significant or non-significant, please value the information gathered from a systematic way, which is obtaining from a research study. Thank you. That's all for today.
Thank you, Dean Onsay. That's a very informative talk. Truly, this is research made easy. May we request our students to turn on their cam? Let us give our resource speakers, Dr. Cecil Espiritu, Dr. Joanna De Manuel, and Dean Myla Onsay, a virtual clap. I think they deserve a virtual clap because they actually gave you a very good input, a talk on research writing. Thank you. Okay, so we stay that way, still turn on your cam, most especially for our students who have their post-paid plan. Let's now move on to the next part of our webinar, which is the open forum. To facilitate this, let us call on Ms. Magdalena Soreliano.
Naka-off po ata ang mic ni Ma'am Maggie.
Thank you for that. I forgot. All right. Good afternoon again, everyone. Remember, soon to be teachers, you cannot avoid research because it is part of your profession as teachers. So let us now go to the clarification of what you have missed in the discussion. I encourage you to take this opportunity to ask questions or inquiries for clarifications. You may turn on your microphone or you may write in the chat box. Anyone who would like to ask, please do so. This is your chance. This is your opportunity. Silence means all that have been tackled today. Okay, anyone would like to ask? You may ask in your first language, in Filipino. All right. So I think congratulations, speakers. This is a very fruitful day because important points and information about research writing has been discussed well and thoroughly. To our three speakers, once again, congratulations. They do not want to ask questions. Okay, Ma'am Tolosa.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Aureliano. I think in our chat box, there is one question. I think this is a question, ma'am. Ano po yung content ng CD po?
Not related about the research. She's just asking about this.
And the faculty members, I believe na overwhelmed yata itong mga estudyante natin. So, inadigest pa siguro nila yung mga discussion na nangyari. But anyways, regarding the question of Generson, ang content po ng CD natin ay yung mismong soft copy ng inyong thesis from preliminary up to the back matter. Of course, do not forget the body of the research. Okay? So, yun ang ilalaman natin sa CD natin. Okay?
Walang gustong magtanong. Sir Banaria, palagay
Yes po, Dean.
sa kanila ang gagawin nila, no? Ayun talaw sa
Hopefully po.
Sa PED.
Hopefully po, Dean.
I have a feeling kayo yung mga tatanungin, yung mga research subject teacher.
Sige po.
Wala talaga. Pero na sila kagagaling, nagagrasp na lahat. Sa orientation pa lang, wala na silang tanong. O tapos ngayon dito, nagtanong lang sa OJT namin.
Okay. Sana lang din, hindi tayo magugulat pagdating ng final oral defense. Mamaya, doon makita natin, ay, okay.
Ma'am Ses, pwede po bang i-announce para baka magtanong sila? BEd and 3 Math, meron po tayong kolokya na ginagawa every year. So yung mga papers nyo, pwedeng makasama siya sa best thesis. So kung gusto nyo mapaganda yung thesis nyo at makasama kayo at mailagay sa graduation na kayo ay part ng best thesis o kayo yon, pwede na kayo magtanong.
Yes.
Malaking award yon para sa inyo. Wala pa rin?
Ma'am, dinadigest pa nila.
Natakot kay Ma'am De Manuel. Alignment.
Actually, ma'am, ano po eh. Well discussed po.
Opo, medyo 1.5 hour eh. 1.5 hour and 5 chapters. Okay.
Pero maganda po. Tama. Maganda yung ano natin ngayon, presentation
Opo.
natin.
I agree po. I agree.
Hindi ko na lang po pinresent yung SPSS na computation na sample kasi ibibigay ko rin naman sa kanila. Opo.
Since we don't have any more questions, thank you very much to our resource speakers and to award the Certificate of Appreciation to our resource speakers. Let us welcome once again the hardworking University Research and Extension Director, Dr. Cecil D.M. Espiritu.
Thank you, Ma'am Marlene. So, Jennerson, can you please share the screen for the certificate? Oh, there you have it. Okay. So, allow me to read the citation. Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Pasig, University of Pasig City, Alcalde Jose Street, Kapasigan, Pasig City. The certificate of recognition is awarded to our Dean, Ms. Myla N. Unsay, for being the resource speaker on the research webinar entitled Research Made Easy, held at the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Pasig through Google Meet, given this 21st day of February 2022. Signed by yours truly, University Research Director, Ms. Rowena Dihil, Academic Affairs Officer, and Dr. Glicerio M. Maningas, our Officer in Charge. Congratulations, Ma'am Myla.
Thank you, Ma'am. Thank you po.
Thank you for gracing this event. Okay, so another certificate of recognition this time is awarded to Dr. Joanna Marie Pina S. de Manuel for being the resource speaker on the research webinar entitled Research Made Easy, held at the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Pasig through Google Meet, given this 21st day of February 2022. Signed by yours truly, the University Research Director, Ms. Rowena Dihil, Academic Affairs Officer, and our Officer in Charge, Dr. Glicerio M. Maningas. Congratulations, Dr. De Manuel, and thank you once again.
Welcome and thank you po. Thank you.
Once again, thank you very much to our resource speakers. Dear students, the journey to completing research may be rocky, tedious, and challenging, but the fruit of hard work is sweet and rewarding. To give us the closing remarks, let's give a hand to the Department Head of Elementary Education, Ms. Luisa Napay.
To our distinguished speakers, Dr. Cecil Espiritu, Dr. Joanna Maria Pina de Manuel, Dean Myla Unsay, sorry for the noise of my pets, my dear colleagues, students, good afternoon. I will just make this a very short closing remark. It seems that the talk for today, for the past 3 hours or so, is just like an ocean, or putting an ocean into a small well, or putting 1 year or 2 semesters work into 1 semester. But don't worry. Our speakers showed us the parts of the ocean that are important for us to follow or to work on just for this semester. So research is not just for us to pass, or for you to pass the 3-unit course of research so that you can graduate and go to your 4th year college level. It is a function of the university, aside from instruction, research, and of course, extension program. So all our decisions should be research-driven. So I hope you, two guys of PLOSA, at the start of this seminar or webinar, that you listened carefully, attentively, and took down notes. But let me summarize a little just for you. And at the same time, thank our speakers. So thank you, Dr. Espiritu, for enlightening us with the research policies and guidelines for the Pamantasan, together with your research manual in guidance of research teachers, students will not venture to something unknown but with proper direction. So students, please keep that soft copy on hand. So when we check your report, that will be our sort of Bible, you know. And of course, thank you, Dr. Manuel, for explaining the beauty of quantitative research. I say beauty because I really find it beautiful. I don't know about you students. They did not ask questions, but actually it's well explained from the search of problem down to how you're going to make recommendations. And also thank you, Ma'am Myla Onsay, for us, because you explained to us how to understand and interpret the data gathered with the use of statistics and the statistical tools and application. But of course, we have the statistician and of course you for us to run to when we have problems regarding making making this data understandable to us so that we can interpret it properly. So, my dear students, it seems so daunting. But remember, take it with knowledge and skills and with the right attitude and values, you will succeed in discovering new ideas and new ways of doing things. Kaya natin yan. Ipagpatuloy natin ang pag-agos ng pag-asa sa ating pamantasan. At sabi nga ni Dr. Di Manuel, it's a jungle out there, so be a lion. But then, if you cannot be a lion, then learn to tame the lion. But don't be the jungle. Don't be the problem, please. So, in behalf of our colleagues, in behalf of all the students, and our supposedly our academic affairs officer to give the closing remark, I thank you all for attending this important event. I bid you good day. God bless us and keep safe always.
Thank you, Ms. Napay, for the closing remarks. Let's now sing our PLP hymn. Thank you very much. That concludes our webinar on Research Made Easy. This has been your host, Marlene Tolosa. Have a great day ahead and God bless everyone.
May we request yes, to turn on the camera for the photo op. Chenerson, you can stop sharing your screen now. Thank you. Dear students, kindly open up your camera for the picture taking. Tingnan natin kung na-stress kayo. during our discussion. O, ayan, fresh naman pala ang mga ito. So, ibig sabihin, naintindihan nga. Okay. So, Botch, take charge. Miss Diane, take charge of taking the picture. Are we all ready? In 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay. Another one. Let's see. 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay. Thank you so much, dear students and faculty members, as well as our non-teaching personnel who attended this. Make sure that you answer the evaluation through the Google Form link, which was, of course, posted in our chat box by Ma'am Eileen. Okay? So, thank you once again and have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, professors. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you po.